someday. Gaps the defense, and he's off. Smith looked at his wrist and got time today. Wow, what a run by Abram Smith.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Ritter to throw, wide open in the back for the touchdown. Leonard Taylor, the tight end.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Daggy wants 6. He goes to Estelle, who hangs on. There's a flag down. We could get targeting here, too.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
And Elliott, huge hole. Ezekiel Elliott off to the races. Can he get there? Chin knocks it out of bounds inside the 10.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Wednesday afternoon on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. We will check in today with West Virginia and also our good friend Chad Brendel, who covers Cincinnati after that win against Notre Dame, and how he is doing as well. JJ Joe, former Baylor quarterback, Baylor Radio, will join us at 4. John Machota, 5:30 on the Cowboys. What a busy 24 hours, actually less than that. Jalen Smith gone. They release him. Patriots trades Gilmore to Carolina. Matt Rule gets him. So there's a lot to get into. Paul's top 5 again at the end of the show. And then also, Jovan Overshown will join us, Baylor Athletics, and answering questions that you had from Mac Rhodes last week, and then also the folder that I sent to the athletic department, hand delivered to Lauren Smith. They put a spreadsheet together to answer some of your questions about game day, the Berm, atmosphere, music, tailgating, etc. She is here to take on that onslaught at 4:30. All right, Armstrong, let's start with a graphic if you don't mind. This is a graphic that I had. This is in my inbox when I woke up this morning on Twitter. I was tagged into this. If you look at the 5 Power 5 conferences, we know how powerful the SEC and how strong the Big Ten is. But look where the Big 12 is. This is, again, according to not all, but some of the ranking services, that the SEC, the lower the number, the better the number. Now, I still think there's much more of a difference between where the SEC, Big Ten are compared to where the Big 12 is. And I'll tell you some things that I did today. Then there's the ACC and Pac-12, which have had not very good years. So here's the Big 12. Yes, it's about still eventual television revenue and all of that. But look where they are when it comes to some of the ratings based on their teams, based on the conferences, and they are steadily right where they were even at this time a year ago, number 3 among the Power Fives.
Yeah, I don't know. Are those the name of like polls?
Yeah, various rating services and all that stuff. Now, that's one thing. Then I went to ESPN, and Craig, then you can respond as well, please, or even now. I went to ESPN. They have their football index. It's kind of their power index. I looked at every single Power 5 school, and I did this personally. The higher the number, the better. Everybody gets a figure. For example, right now, Georgia's got a 28.2. There are some teams, for example, in the ACC, in the Big Ten, also even in the SEC, and also in the Big 12 that have minus numbers. You take all of the numbers, add them up, and divide it by how many teams there are, and the SEC has a 9.17 total. Of course, they have number 1 and 2 with Georgia and Alabama. Big 10, 7.4. Big 12 is 6.51. That's even with Kansas, a minus 18.6 in the index. Then it's the ACC at 6.1, and then the Pac-12's at 2.1. Based on who you've beaten, who you've played, and all of that. So my point to start off with this, we know how good the SEC is, the Big Ten is, but that's pretty good. The Big 12, considering, yes, it does include Texas and Oklahoma. If you replace them with Brigham Young and Cincinnati, there's not much difference in some of these numbers and figures as well.
Yeah, I think that's cool. You know, the Big 12 has
I mean, look, there's a top 5 team right now. There's 2 or 3 top 25 teams. Texas is very well going to be, depending on what they do this weekend, jumping up in the rankings if they get a win. If not, then it'll probably take them some time to get back in the top 25. But, I mean, look, like half the conference is in contention. So, I mean, I'm not all that surprised by how competitive it is. Baylor's only got the 1 loss. They're still very much in it. Iowa State's only got the 1 loss. They're still very much in it. Oklahoma's unbeaten. Texas only has a loss to Arkansas, so on and so forth. There's some teams like this weekend. West Virginia might eliminate itself because they're already 0-2 in the Big 12, so they can't lose again. I mean, they can't be 0-3 in the Big 12. They're done. They're absolutely done if that's the case. So, we're going to get some separation this week. Baylor's either taking their 2nd loss or West Virginia's taking their 3rd. And you can go across the other games as well. OU's either taking their 1st or Texas is taking their 1st. So as far as Big 12 games go. So that's going to, even out a little bit. But I think it's a highly competitive conference. I don't know if there's any team that's actually capable of beating a Georgia or an Alabama. So for all of the Vanderbilts and whoever that want to drag down the SEC number, I mean, the top 2 teams are the elite teams in college football right now. So if they're being dragged down, that's fine because they got the 2 best teams anyways that are almost guaranteed to be in the playoff at this point. But yeah, that's about where I would think the Big 12 would be. There's nothing out of the Pac-12 to really fawn over, especially after Oregon loses. And we know the mess that the ACC is. Clemson's irrelevant. Florida State's irrelevant. Miami's irrelevant. North Carolina
is a big disappointment.
They were supposed to be something. They've been irrelevant. So, Big 12, I think it's solid at 3rd right now out of Power 5.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You think about the Big 12 to me in the grand scheme of things. To me, it looks like a lot of the basketball seasons do when they don't have for example, until this year, there's really only one team that could legitimately win the national title. But now that they had a couple, but Baylor wins the national title, Kansas won a national title, Texas Tech's played in the Final Four. But there's a lot of years where the Big 12 is
a title.
Championship. Yeah.
But there's a lot of years where there's not a team that's going to play for a title, but the conference is good top to bottom or pretty close to it. And I think that's what the football looks like this year. It's like I don't know if anybody's going to win the national title or maybe even go to the CFP, but top to bottom, it's a really pretty good conference.
No,
outside of an outlier here or there.
Yeah.
So that's again, it's we're still early. We're in October, where you kind of get an idea at the end of this month who's going to be a part of the stretch run. If you look at all these numbers, really it's data, it's indexes, it's power rankings, and it's probably more closer to what the BCS used to look like rather than anything else. And of course, that was replaced because that even couldn't sometimes be something you could rely on, although, at least it still was a human element there when they went to the computers as well. So we're going to have Jed Redding, West Virginia sideline reporter, here in just a minute as well. Couple of notes. I had Beer Smoker, I love that name, 4444, asked me this question. Forgive me if this has been asked recently. If you or any of the 365 guys could build your own mega 16-team conference and take anyone, who would you take? Would you just go with the top 15 out of 20, 16 out of 20 power teams? Would you want to go regional? Would you want to go with maybe some of the more scenic places, although still a Power 5? How would you? I mean, we don't have time to do it now, but that's a question for the audience, chat room, and also the text line at 254-339-1122. Would it still be the country club if you did that?
It depends. Are they just playing by themselves? Because that's the thing.
I need some more rules here.
Yeah. Because for example, if they're only playing themselves, like this is supposed to be a mini NFL, well, then I'm going to spread it out geographically. If they're going to be playing the teams that are left over, well, then I'm just going to take all the best teams and just have the best teams. I'm going to take the 4 from. I'll take Georgia, Bama, OU. Give me all those blue bloods that are still playing like blue bloods right now. But yeah, if you're saying that you are going to be matched up against some other people, then yeah, I'm going to spread it out and probably take USC and Oregon out of the West and Texas OU out of the South and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I just need a little more detail.
I will, Beer Smoker 4444, be looking for me. I'll be sending you something so you can maybe clarify a couple of more things as you want.
Thanks
Paul,
for the question.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah. Paul gave me this. The Big 12 women's basketball preseason awards are out. Alyssa Smith All-American at Baylor, is the preseason player of the year, and she was as well.
You didn't do a special live cut-in broadcast for that, Paul?
Yeah.
With that being announced?
No, not yet.
The podcast, we'll do the podcast.
I already do like 4 different things.
Transfer Jordan Lewis from Alabama is the newcomer of the year. There's plenty of players on this list. Baylor also has Queen Egbo. It's littered with numerous schools along the Big 12, and that's all starting to come out. Basketball practices, of course, have begun. Nikki Collins been on her tour, and a lot more as well. So here's a quote from Tony Dungy on the Urban Meyer story yesterday, over the weekend. I played football for probably 16 years total. I coached for 28. I never went to a game where the head coach didn't come back with my team. Me and myself for 13 years as a head coach, 15 years as an assistant, 15 years playing when the head coach went to a game. When we returned, the head coach came back with us. So that, to me, I just don't know how you do that and say, hey, I'm going to stay in Ohio. And so that was something from somebody that holds a lot of, obviously, I guess, integrity and an opinion for a guy like Tony Dungy to say that. Now, I know that Meyer has once again now apologized to his team, this time altogether after the disaster of yesterday. But that Tony Dungy, to me, is about, I listen to what he says.
Yeah, and I think that professional athletes are not on any kind of moral high ground as a collective group.
Professional, the NFL in general.
Yeah, the NFL in general. The NFL in general is not any kind of collective moral high ground to be able to say, well, you did wrong, you did wrong. That is between Urban Meyer and the rest of the Meyer family. The point is that you're a professional, you put yourself in a place where you're a distraction, and you're doing it by doing all these things differently than most other head coaches do. So you're trying to establish credibility, and then when given the opportunity, there's plenty of guys in that locker room who've messed up, especially like through college. You can't tell me there's no guys on the Jaguars that in college didn't have some mess ups and their coach had to come and sit down to them, and then to be like, this was just kind of I should have left, and this girl, it was an accident, and I didn't know. Like, it's just all this stuff that those guys know that, no, that's not how it is. You got to be straight with people.
I'm almost done. Well, I think we're pretty much done with Urban Meyer unless eventually Jacksonville's done. Then there's a story again. But that's from a guy that I just love listening to Tony Dungy and how he breaks things down pretty simple.
Yeah, I don't think it helps Urban Meyer at all, having Tony Dungy now commenting on your story. I mean, I think that's probably not something you wanted to wake up to or whatever, but he carries an amount of respect around football and I guess outside of football to an extent as well. So anytime Tony Dungy talks, people are going to at least give it some consideration. And I think he makes a point. He just makes the same point that everybody else has been making. Yep. Really, it's just that it's Tony Dungy that said it, and not like Joe Schmo. But there are a lot of people casting rocks, and I'm not trying to defend Urban Meyer in any way. What he did was dumb as hell, and I don't have respect for him. But there's also a lot of people having a little bit too much fun with it, and we'll see what the Jaguars ultimately do. But, a lot of glass houses right now.
Tony Dungy said what happened in the bar or whatever, that's secondary. You go back with your team. We finished by getting home and getting everybody. That's your responsibility as the head coach to make sure everybody lands on that plane safe. Everybody gets back to the facility. Then you do what you have to do. So that's and that story continues on. We'll see what happens with that. We'll come back with Jed Drenning. We'll do that now, Paul. Take a break. Come back with him, or you want to go straight to him here in a couple of minutes? The other story
let's
was
take a break first.
In the NFL, Jalen Smith late yesterday released by the Cowboys. This has just been a matter of time. John Machota, theathletic.com, will join us today at 5:30 on that.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a big deal yesterday that came out of nowhere. I mean, out of absolute nowhere. And, to do it at this point in the season is – matter of time, sure. Matter of time until his contract finally ran out. But for them to just go ahead and cut bait, that was shocking. That was out of the complete blue. So there is part of me that does feel bad for Jalen Smith. Just the human being in me, and just knowing what that embarrassment must feel like to have to go onto social media, especially when you've been talking a big game and you've had your fun, and you switch to that single digit jersey, and you're selling T-shirts, and
he paid a lot of money to get that single digit too.
Yeah, paid money to get that single digit. You had the Hot Boys and all this other stuff because DeMarcus Lawrence could very well be on it. This is very interesting, and the fact that they went ahead and just said, nope, we've seen enough, and he's not going to fit in what we're doing defensively. And Bill Jones had some great video clips of a couple of plays where they had Jalen Smith lined up, and he was just getting bullied out of the way. Like, it was bad film, and maybe that was kind of what led to them just going like, this isn't going to turn around and this isn't going to work, so we got to go ahead and just make the call here. But yeah, that was shocking. Part of me felt really bad for him, and then part of me is like, hey, that's the business side we talk about,
Yep, we had him on when he was drafted. We had him during training camp. It was an incredible segment with him. Here's a picture. Now, Paul, why would I show this picture? I like Jalen Smith. As a person, he seems to be as good as it gets. He's going to end up making money somehow. Businessman, somebody will probably even, although the trade deadline's pretty much gone now, still offer them something, or he'll get picked up by somebody. It's not like he can't walk and chew gum, although sometimes you can debate that as a player where he's supposed to be. Why am I showing this picture?
Well, because this is kind of the microcosm of Jalen Smith here. He's not really helping the cause here, but he's on top of the pile.
Okay, that's a tackle. Forward progress is over. And here comes Jalen Smith jumping on them. We've seen this before. I showed you a picture last week of him diving for a ball 9 yards away from where the receiver was.
Yeah,
there's a lot of, and again, he's a really good person, but there's a lot of football fraud in him.
Well, there's a couple things going on with Jalen Smith. One, they drafted his replacement, and his replacement is a superstar.
Yeah, Micah Parsons.
Parsons.
Yeah.
I mean, he is just so dang good. Two, the defense has changed, and Jalen doesn't have a place in it. Three, he has a $9 million injury guarantee that he would not waive for next year, and that's probably the reason it happened yesterday, because I think the Cowboys are trying to renegotiate to keep him for the rest of the year, and maybe even into next year and see what happens. But he wouldn't waive that injury guarantee, and with his history, you can't do that. Four, there are actually some things going on with the Cowboys right now that have not happened in years, and I think they know they're at a delicate point, and they don't want to mess it up, which I mean, Smokey, you and I have talked about this for years. They do not have, historically, since the Super Bowl years, worker bees. All of a sudden, there are a bunch of worker bee, army ants, whatever you want to call it.
That's what I used to say, army ants.
That are not necessarily stars, but are pulling their weight. And Jalen Smith is a guy who is all about the brand of number 9. And that's fine. That's his business prerogative. But inside that locker room, I think they're trying to get away from that 53 brands thing. And he's a guy that, as good as a guy as he is, he's always gonna fit in that mold. And I think they just had to cut bait.
Jermaine Bell, fake hustle. Sooner JJ, the fact he was able to come back from the injury and still play at the highest level, even for a short time, is admirable. I absolutely agree with you. Good luck to Jalen Smith moving forward. I do agree with you on that, no question.
It was incredible when he got drafted. I remember what a great story that was, and then there was the doubts about whether he would ever be able to really even compete. You had the assurances that, like, no, they aren't wasting this draft pick, but there was still some uncertainty about whether he'd still be able to really go, and he was able to. It's just obviously not at a high enough level for them right now, and there were some growing pains along the way where, you could tell he was still dealing with the effects of having come back and what he went through and all that. But if you go to CBS 11 Bill Jones on Twitter, CBS 11 Bill Jones, last night he posted 2 clips of the Cowboys in that 3-4 defense with Jalen Smith as a part of that look. And just watch like how he gets pushed back and how the Panthers immediately gain 14 yards on a run right at him and then gain like 13 on the following play, I think. There's like 2 back-to-back plays that show him. And all I needed to see was those 2 plays, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get why they did what they did. So, yeah, at CBS 11, Bill Jones is from about 17 hours ago, but it's near the top of his feed. And those are 2 examples of probably what the Cowboys were seeing on film and deciding, like, yeah, it's not the fit that we need. But I do feel for him.
There's also reports that the Philadelphia or the Packers or others might be interested.
Sure.
Matt LaFleur was at Notre Dame when Smith was there. So there's still the opportunity that something might happen. He'll be playing for somebody, and most likely even perhaps by the end of the week as well.
That's still shocking, though. Yeah. Like, I mean, for him, too, to be probably just going about his business.
It's so against Jerry Jones for the last several years. He doesn't get rid of stars, and I'm not saying Jalen's a star, but he is in a way. He doesn't get rid of people he likes. He eventually let Murray walk, or eventually DeMarcus Ware walk, and even Tony Romo in a way. He just doesn't do this, and to me, this is a great sign that they understand the game and they understand the business as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you're Mr. defensive player for the Cowboys, and they're getting ready for a game, and all of a sudden you're just gone. Like, you're just done. And that is the part where, they talk about, head coaches in college football has all these assurances, the buyout clauses and everything, and the players can just get booted off the team and they're screwed or whatever. And, the NFL, these players can be cut at any time, and then people get mad at them for wanting their money. So it's funny, that little tug of war that goes on, but this is a prime example of like why you got to get your money when you can get it, and why it's also a cutthroat business, and nothing's guaranteed really.
And if the Cowboys come to me and said, look, I know you've got a $9 million injury guarantee, we want you to stay here, but we need you to waive that, I'd be like, no, I'd rather have the $9 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
some people would, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just, as much as I've already been a Cowboy, I don't have $9 million. I'd rather get that $9 million for him to be here. So
Sooner, JJ, what about the Patriots and Gilmore? Well, they've already done that. They've traded him to Carolina. Matt Rule picked up Gilmore. Last week it was C.J. Henderson from T. Lawrence and Gragston, I think it is. College football playoff quarterfinals, guys. Oklahoma, Texas, Iowa, and Penn State.
Well, it's so early for that, but then maybe.
That would be really hard to get to those four. There'd be some really big upsets that would have to happen. And for example, Texas would have to beat Oklahoma this weekend, and then we'd have to go through all the rest of it. But to get to that four we'd mean we'd be in for one hell of an interesting season the rest of the way.
Let's put it this way: whoever wins Penn State, Iowa has a foot in the door. They still have other doors to kick in. If Oklahoma beats Texas, then they're kind of back to where maybe feeling better. If Texas wins, then they're back in the picture. They still have work to do to overcome eventually Arkansas, but they would then be at the top of the Big 12 standing.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma would just be cementing themselves as the favorite to land in a playoff spot if they were to beat Texas, but we'll see.
All right, when we come back, we'll hear from Jed Drenning, sideline reporter for West Virginia, 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio.
BetUS.com, the 3-decade leader. Why BetUS? Because, look, they've got action on every sport around the world, so we're pretty much sure they've got your game. Whatever you want to bet on, they've got you covered. And remember these promo codes. Sikkim125, that's 125% bonus if you use cash on a deposit of $100 or more, or 200% if you use crypto. So Sikkim125 and Sikkim200. They've got a great loyalty program. It's legendary. They keep their players up to date with articles, players, team stats, and trends, giving you the right tools to make the best wagering decisions. BetUS, serving clients for 25-plus years. BetUS.com, promo code Sikkim125 and Sikkim200.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Allen Samuels, we're proud to announce that Dodge is the #2 brand overall in new vehicle initial quality by J.D. Power. We've got amazing offers this month, so let our team help find the new 2021 Dodge vehicle that's right for you.
Come by. Let's be friends. The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy old world pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizzas since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We have spoken with Jed Drenny many different times, sometimes even during the concerns about where the Big 12 was going. Also, of course, his knowledge of West Virginia football, sideline reporter for the radio broadcast. He joins us. 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. Jed, I got to tell you, when we were about to do our pregame, and I looked at the Texas Tech score at West Virginia, if I would have bet on one game last week, it would have been on West Virginia beating Tech and probably however they wanted. What happened, man?
Well, I'd start with this. This is why I don't coach. Okay. When you're dealing with 18 to 20-year-old kids, it's wildly unpredictable. You always have concerns that they'll show up flat at the wrong time. I do know that we were still in the locker room in Norman after the game last week. And, we had, for instance, Jordan Leslie walking around and talking to some of our defensive players saying, listen, what we're going to do is watch the tape, put this behind us, and not let it beat us twice, because we all knew it would take some energy to recover from really an emotionally charged setback like that was out there in Oklahoma. And we thought that the kids were ready. It very much seemed that way. But the funny thing is that maybe it's ironic that I'm listening to some of the Baylor post game out of Stillwater, and they sounded like us. They said, what kind of corrections were made at halftime to give you guys a puncher's chance in the second half? Nothing really, other than we weren't as flat. We came out with more energy in the second half. And in large measure, I think that's what we did. You can't afford against a Big 12 opponent to come out flat and spot them a 30-minute head start. Now, to Tech's credit, they made the plays when that opportunity presented itself and dug us in too deep of a hole to overcome. We responded in the second half, but again, that hole was too deep. So there's parallels between how Baylor's game played out last week and how West Virginia's did. Now the question becomes, all right, who bounces back and responds more favorably?
Jed, I know that there's a lot of consternation in Morgantown about Jarrett Dagey, and I know they have Green, the young guy that everybody really wants to see. How close or how bad would things have to get for Neil Brown to pull that trigger and sit Jarrett Dagey down?
Well, here's the great irony of it is I think Jarrett Dagey, in large measure, is coming off the best half of his college career. He threw for 183 yards in the third quarter the other night. He started that second half 18 to 22. I mean, he's the kid that stood up at halftime and provided some leadership when it was really needed with that offense. What you have is a situation where when you're struggling, who's the most popular guy in town? It's always the backup quarterback, right? Uh-huh. Now, we got a talented, explosive, high-energy, slippery kid in Garrett, right? But Garrett's not quite the superintendent of the offense at large that Jarrett is. They have different skill sets. There's different things that Garrett can provide, but there's also several things that Jarrett can provide. And I think what Neil's trying to do is strike that balance. And and, go with the 2-quarterback system, putting each in position to flourish and not asking either one of them to do things they can't do. Okay. But I'm not so sure the light's entirely ready to come on for Garrett yet. He'll let you know when that happens, right? You don't let a kid know, they let you know. I always go back, West Virginia fans, remember how things played out with Pat White. Well, Pat White, his coming out party was that come from behind Louisville game in 2005. I mean, up to that point, he was splitting time, and we were 5-1, and everybody was happy. Nobody was clamoring for Pat White to start. He just looked like a really explosive, dynamic kid who was making plays for us. But it was working, and it wasn't until the other quarterback got hurt in that Louisville game and Pat had to run the show that he responded and said, yes, I am now ready. I'm going to make it obvious to everyone. Well, when young kids are all ready, they'll do that. But in the meantime, what you got to do is put them in particular situations, again, that cater to their skill set. And Garrett is a talented kid. He has an escapability that Jarrett doesn't have. He brings a certain level of energy anytime he's on the field. So there's things that you can do with both these kids to help be productive offensively. And I think that's the plan moving forward, unless one of them just absolutely asserts themselves to such an extent that it's obvious to everyone. But until then, if you're trying to win football games, you want to use both of them to the best of your ability. And again, Jarrett's coming off in a really dynamic second half that he gave us a chance to potentially come back and win that football game in the second half because of the way he played. Now, he left a couple things on the table in that second half, but by and large, I think, that was a passing grade for him in that second half of football. If you can get more of that, that's promising for the offense.
Jed, Letty Brown came back. He was first team All Big 12 last year. Had a great season. But, there's not been much of a run game. I mean, Garrett Green has been a big part of their run game when he's been back there. And outside of that, it's been hard for Letty to find yards. I mean, the Virginia Tech game, the numbers look good, but he also had an 80-yard run in that game that kind of skewed a little bit. Is it the line? Is it the depth? Where do you point to for the problems West Virginia's had in consistently running the football?
I think part of it's continuity. Part of it's the nature in which people are defending us. I always like to say, look, you can't launch a rocket from a rowboat. Now, we're not the rowboat that we were a couple years ago up front. We've made progress, but we're young. So it's a function of those guys repping together. And it's the next step we got to take, and this is the same step we were trying to take at points last year, is running the football. It becomes painfully obvious and apparent that we have to. When the field shrinks, 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 4th and 1, short yardage situations, in the red zone when the field shrinks, you got to be able to push bodies around, and really exert your will at those points in games. Now, we haven't been able to as consistently do that as we want, but we're getting there. Again, at least the pieces are now in place. Whereas maybe a couple of years ago, that wasn't entirely the case. The pieces are now in place. It's just a function of, all right, those pieces are pretty young. So there's going to be some growing pains as we work towards this. But, dynamic, Letty's a dynamic, versatile, talent, and you want to do whatever you can to find creative ways to get him the football. But as that unit improves, his game will improve as well. But in the meantime, you got to find some other ways to feed him. And I think that Neil and the offensive staff, Jared Parker and crew, have done a good job of doing that in the pass game as well. I mean, we're on pace to feed the backs of the pass game a little bit more than Neil's offenses traditionally have. And that's a byproduct of that.
Your thoughts about what you've seen? I know you watch what others are doing, and obviously with Baylor this week, but Gary Bohannon, it wasn't the great week. Obviously, offensively, they were not good at all in the first half. Then they made some adjustments, but almost still not enough. Your thoughts about what you see? And it looks like now, Jed, 17-14, 20-17, 30-27 maybe. This is kind of now the new Big 12.
It is. I posted something earlier today. If you go back to 2016, 9 of the 10 teams in the Big 12 allowed more than 425 yards a game defensively. Whereas right now, 9 of the 10 Big 12 teams are allowing fewer than 400. So things have shifted. It's cyclical, right? But how funny is it, guys, that here we have this matchup between one head coach who's a former Mike Leach GA and another head coach who's a former Mike Leach receiver. It doesn't feel like that at all, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like that on either sideline, right?
No.
I'm a big Dave Aranda fan. I always have been. I really like the way he approaches things and handles his business. I know our staff does as well. And I think he surrounded himself with some good people on both sides of the football. I'm dating myself, but I actually played against Ron Roberts back in college when he was at UT Martin. I was just looking at our scouting report that Jimbo Fisher put together 30-odd years ago. And here you have this big old Sam linebacker with this intense stare in there. But Ron Roberts has done a great job. It's kind of a sounding board back and forth with Dave Aranda. And, of course, you can't say enough about the job that Jeff Grimes has come in and done, with that RBO offense and being really physical, no nonsense, but mistake-free. You talked about it. When I think of Gary Bohannon, I think of a guy who doesn't put the football in harm's way. He's not going to get you beat. I mean, think about it. The next pick he throws as a Baylor Bear will be the first pick he throws as a Baylor Bear. I mean, what else can you say about that, whether the guy was spot playing or not? At this point in the season, that is remarkable, okay? So they protect the football. It's difficult to knock them off schedule with that wide zone scheme they have. It's all by design. It's a good plan. It's a solid plan, and they have playmakers in key spots. I mean, I look at some of the things that they can do defensively with those different looks they throw at you, and then you put a kid like Bernard in there, as talented and dynamic and explosive as he is, and the versatility that a Petrie brings. I mean, these are NFL guys. And then Dylan Doyle, I mean, sign me up for Dylan Doyle being on my football team. A guy that can smell the football out like that. They got some good football players, and they're not going to beat themselves. I mean, there's a reason that they're ranked as high as they are in turnover margin. That's not an accident. So yeah, you got to respect the way they go about handling their business, and I expect them to be very eager for a bounce back opportunity coming off of what happened in Stillwater, because I think they're frustrated like we were.
Jed, Aranda and Neil Brown both going so far away from the Mike Leach system is like two guys learning for years how to be pit masters and then opening up salad restaurants.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of what it comes down to. That's a good analogy. Different people have gone different ways, right? And it's funny because, you see obviously Coach Aranda, working his way to the defensive side and all the accomplishments that he's had on that side of the football. But meanwhile, Neil is a guy that I'd say his strength as a head coach is that he appreciates. Now, what makes it unusual is he's an offensive guy, okay? I would almost expect this more from Coach Aranda as a defensive guy. But defensive guys tend to see the game more globally and appreciate how the interconnectivity of the three phases, special teams, how it impacts defense, how defense impacts offense, vice versa. But Neil is an offensive guy. Look, I'm an offensive guy. I'm guilty of the same thing. I want to score. I want to rack up yards. I want to be exciting. But he understands and appreciates sometimes it's all about getting a couple first downs and punting. I mean, sometimes you got to put out a fire for your defense. And for an offensive guy to see the big picture to the extent that he does is really a testament to him. You can't accomplish the things that we did defensively last year. We were the number one ranked Power 5 defense in the country, the first Big 12 team since K-State in 99 to lead the nation in pass defense. That doesn't happen just because of what you're doing defensively. I mean, I always said last year, Jarrett Dagey was our 12th defensive starter. I mean, it takes an offensive approach that caters to the strengths of those defenses, and you see that on both sides in this matchup with Coach Aranda and with Coach Brown.
Jed, speaking of that defense, I mean, as you said, they are really nasty, and there's just player after player, whether it's Mesidor or whether it's Alston or, Stills, just on and on and on and on and on. They're not letting teams run the football. They're also defending the pass well. How has this defense cratered at all at times, and how have teams been able to have some success against this Mountaineers defense?
Well, if you noticed, the last couple of weeks, and we have to become a football team that not just do we have a strength, but we can hang our hat on that strength. And I would agree with you. I think we've created a culture and set a standard defensively that I do think our defense is a strength. But the last couple of weeks at the end of the game, things hanging in the balance, we haven't been able to hang our hat on that. We've given up 2 late field goal drives that cost us both those games with things on the line. Now, that ties directly into, I think, what's playing out from a lack of depth standpoint. When you look at some of the names that you talked about up front, I'm telling you, they're just as nasty as you explained and described. And what happens is, defensively as a play caller, Jordan Leslie doesn't have to commit as many resources and numbers to the box or flying downhill against the run, or even to some extent for a pass rush. So we can drop those resources and numbers into coverage, and you can see how that can be beneficial to you as a defensive play caller because of those guys. But what we lack and we're still working towards developing that, is the proper or appropriate depth that you need in the Big 12 to play behind. And we have candidates to play behind some of those guys. But right now, they're still developmental type guys, very talented guys, but still in that developmental phase. And defensive play callers are always going to want their best on the field with the game on the line. So what ends up happening, sometimes when you put your best on the field, they're running on a half-empty tank or running on fumes. And I think to some extent, to some degree, that's kind of what you saw in Norman. That's kind of what you saw at the end of last week. So, I'll take those front three or even our front four against anybody. And not to mention the guys on the second and third level that are our starters, but there are certain areas of this defense that we're still working towards developing some depth. And as the season progresses, you certainly hope we find it, because you're going to need it. I mean, what's it supposed to be, 93 degrees on Saturday in Waco?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So if you're going to, what better time to distribute your snap count on the defensive side than in that kind of, those kind of conditions. So that's what we're working towards. I mean, those frontline starters, wow. Disruptive, as advertised, everything you talked about. We just got to develop some depth there.
Jed, it's great talking to you, man. Good to see you, and we'll see you Saturday. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. You guys stay safe now.
Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter, Baylor, West Virginia, 11 o'clock. Our pregame will be at 9 Saturday morning right here inside the studio on 101 Elm and MLK.
This is a game I think Baylor should win with it being at home and coming off of the way they performed last week. But West Virginia is going to make it really difficult. It's going to come down to, can they throw the football? If they can't, then they're screwed, because we know that if they can't, then they can't run the football, and that's what they want to do. So against this West Virginia defense, Gary Bohannon's going to have his best game throwing the ball, and it's got to be on the money, and receivers have to catch it, and Tyquan Thornton or whoever has to actually get physical. Mm-hmm. If it's not directly in your chest, still go make the catch. Across the board, they play the way they played last week, they're getting beat. Bottom line, I don't care what Daggy does. They'll get beat because West Virginia defense will make sure of it. So the big challenge for the Baylor offense, and the defense needs to be mindful of the fact that, they have been susceptible to the run the last couple of weeks. Now, granted, they're facing Iowa State and Oklahoma State, and you're facing, guys like Breece Hall and Jalen Warren and, better O-lines, but they've been run all over. They've bent and not broken all the time, but they're a couple plays from getting blown out last week. I mean, bottom line. So, yeah, they need to play a clean game, or West Virginia will give them fits.
It'll be very similar to what we saw in the first half against Oklahoma State, and perhaps if it does get out of hand. But if they do what you said, they have a chance to make some plays on offense, have playmakers do something in the clutch. They have a chance to come back and get back on the winning track for Brigham Young in the non-conference the following week. When we come back, we'll check in with our good friend Chad Brendel. He covers Cincinnati after their winning against Notre Dame. Second 365 Radio and 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace, just on the I-35 south part of Waco, on the access road that goes to Highway 6 that heads to the southwest or west. IdealMRI.com can help you find out what hurts you so much, and also help you save money when you find out evidence of a torn ligament or something, a muscle that's ripped, something that's going to probably need surgery or maybe not, and your doctor wants to help you find out what is causing you to not sleep, to not be able to function, to do this or that because something hurts so badly. IdealMRI.com with a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. I have been in it. Let's see, 3 times. Once when they opened, once when I had to have a look at my shoulder, and also recently when I got an MRI of my abdomen, just because in the family, my 2 older brothers have had a battle with prostate cancer. Thank goodness everything came out clear and negative. But they can do that for you as well if that's been a problem with your PSA numbers or something you just want to know. And oh, by the way, $497 or less every single time, and I mean less, because they'll also help you with the insurance instead of the average of $1,100 for an MRI. Dr. Rob Maxey, Al LeBlanc, and that staff, they're amazing. No big, huge waiting room, waiting forever. It's you and them, and it's in their building in the Central Texas Marketplace at IdealMRI.com.
At long last, it's time for some college football. Bird Collision Ford proudly supports the Baylor Bears as they take the field this season. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Collision Ford. We have some great vehicles available this season as well, so come check out our winning lineup of new Fords. Let's cheer the Bears on to victory and celebrate by buying a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sic 'em Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasonings, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
BearcatJournal.com, the owner, Chad Brendel, joins us. 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio, and of course we know Cincinnati gives the Big 12 3 teams inside the top 10, right? Oklahoma, Cincinnati, and Brigham Young as well. Chad, it has been a journey. We started talking to you before even all the crazy stuff of realignment or whatever. Can you try to put some sort of emotional barometer of what Saturday meant to the Cincinnati football program and community?
It meant a lot, and a lot of it is just tied to how insanely well that fan base traveled to South Bend and essentially held a takeover of Notre Dame Stadium, which is unheard of. It's kind of like the exercising the demons of Brian Kelly in some ways. Because of the way he left Cincinnati, there were some hard feelings. It felt like this was a chance to put those to rest. Marcus Freeman for leaving for Notre Dame. going into this season. And just to have that statement on national TV that kind of announces to the country that Cincinnati has arrived and doesn't plan on going anywhere. And I think that was, really important in relation to the move to the Big 12, because the other side of the tunnel is right there. And Cincinnati now has their validation on a national scale that they have the type of football program that can legitimately be considered a top 5 team. And that's never really been the case before.
So now do you white knuckle it through the rest of the season, hoping they don't lose, so that maybe, just maybe, the powers that be will lower themselves to Cincinnati in the playoff in their own mind?
I mean, you don't have any other choice at this point. Yeah. The beauty of it is this is pretty clearly the best team in the American Athletic Conference. Now, that doesn't mean that, there's not going to be a crazy Saturday where something unexpected happens. But as the nation saw last Saturday, with the way that this defense plays week in and week out, you feel pretty good that they're going to keep you in the game and give Desmond Ridder and the offense enough of a chance to score, because that's really, I think even when it comes to the playoff conversation, that's the thing about this Cincinnati team that's different than the other G5 teams that have tried this, right? There's no gimmicks to Cincinnati. It's not high flying, spread it out, crazy offenses and wild schemes. Luke Fickle's team lines up and says, come beat us. And I think that's really the difference of this team from the other, group of 5 teams that have tried to get in.
Chad, to that point, is Desmond Ridder one of the best players that maybe still a lot of people don't know about in college football?
Yeah, I think they're learning pretty fast. You talk like Des did before the Notre Dame game, and then you back it up. All of a sudden, some people start to figure out who you are. This week he's running in Vegas 3rd in the Heisman straw polls, or the Heisman odds. So, I think definitely he's a guy that is still a little bit under the radar, but I think that is starting to change pretty quickly.
How many Big 12 conference banners have been produced up in Cincinnati around that campus, and how many have you sold?
We haven't done any yet. I've got an apparel partner that we might be talking about some things, but John Cunningham, the athletic director, said it pretty well, I thought, in terms of, we ran the Big 12 banners out the weekend, opening weekend, right when it was announced, and then we put them away. And we said, we'll get to that, but we got something to take care of first that's a lot more important. And then I think you'll start seeing more of the Big 12 stuff as time goes on. Right now, the goals are much different.
Yeah, and there's no question. Right now matters, current matters. But how much of the timing of this? It's like we brought this up, Chad. Brigham Young's playing Baylor in 2 weeks. It just all of a sudden Brigham Young's on the non-conference schedule. This is the year that Brigham Young also agrees that they're going to join the Big 12. And Cincinnati's been moving towards this moment, the Notre Dame win, et cetera. And it's also the year that they're going to be a part eventually of the Big 12. How ironic do you think some of that is?
It's incredibly fortuitous timing, of course, right? Because, Cincinnati got that bump right as the season started that they're going to the Big 12, and their name was talked about a lot. And then that coincided with having a really good team that's got a chance to get in the national spotlight. There was always the danger that could fizzle away if they weren't able to take down Indiana and Notre Dame, 2 Power 5 road games. Now that that's done, they've just taken a complete snowball effect of momentum into the rest of this season and going forward. And it's funny, you're starting to even hear less of where's Luke Fickle going to go, or there's no way Luke Fickle's going to stay at Cincinnati. Now everybody's starting to look at it and go, wow, there's a chance he's going to be there a while, like a legitimate even though there was a legitimate chance before that, people just didn't understand it. Now people are starting to think, man, they might have some staying power with this thing.
Chad Brendel with us, again, Bearcat Journal, Cincinnati, with a huge win against Notre Dame over the weekend. And you're right, there's been the bump, there's been those wins, and there are. If it was Billboard magazine, Paul, they'd be the one with the big bullet going straight up. There's no
absolutely.
question. Yeah.
Is there any is there any cooling on Luke Fickle to USC?
There was never any heat on Luke Fickle to USC outside of uninformed people talking about it. If we're being, I know it's a trendy thing to talk about, but I just don't see it as all that realistic of an option. If you read the LA Times article that came out right before the Notre Dame game, the most poignant quote in all of this, that we've heard throughout Luke Fickle's 4 years, came from his wife when Amy said she doesn't like to move. And that's pay attention to that statement. Like that, Amy is the one that calls the shots in the Fickle family. Luke likes to argue with me about that from time to time, but we all know it's true. Amy's the one that calls the shots. And Amy doesn't like to move, and Los Angeles is a long way to move, that family with 6 kids. I don't think there's any smoke to Luke in the USC job other than it's easy to mention his name because he's, the hottest coach at the second level, whatever you want to call it. And he was hired by Mike Bohn at Cincinnati, but this isn't Cincinnati. I went back and watched my the introductory press conference with Luke Fickle, December 10th, 2016. And I asked Luke about this at the press conference, and he made it pretty clear this wasn't a case of Cincinnati courting Luke Fickle when he got the job. This is a case of Luke Fickle aggressively courting Cincinnati because it was a job he wanted desperately because they had identified it as the ability to stay in Ohio, ability to be close to, all their families around the state. And he doesn't have that with Los Angeles. It just doesn't make any sense.
Chad, how's everything going at home? How's your wife doing?
We're getting there. A lot of appointments, a lot of doctors, a lot of poking and prodding, but out of the hospital and recovering and trying to get everything fixed. So spirits are good. Took her out to lunch today, had a great lunch, and she's in a good mood, so that's what counts.
All right, man. Thinking about you guys. Thanks for your time, as always. Chad Brendel, Bearcat Journal, covers Cincinnati. We dropped in on West Virginia with Jed Drenning. Coming up next, former Baylor quarterback and color analyst on Baylor Radio, J.J. Joe, Sikkim 365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. It's been a little bit of an issue, to be honest with you, with the supply chain going on around the country right now. It's been difficult for a lot of dealerships to be able to get what they want to get on the lot. That's the bad news. Computer chip shortages are negatively affecting vehicle inventory across the world. But the good news is that General Motors has announced they are going to restart production and will release a steady flow of vehicles throughout the fall. So cars and trucks are coming, and now is the time to contact Richard Carr and get your name on a new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac as they are being shipped. So get your name on the first in-line priority list, and you can get your car or truck first as they arrive. If you're looking for a pickup, we'll get the best, which means getting a Sierra from Richard Carr. It's got an ideal combination of power and strength with refinement and luxury. Sierra is the best truck on the road. If you want a roomy SUV, consider a Buick. The Buick lineup of SUVs offers size and versatility to fit every lifestyle. Or maybe you're looking for a combination of sophistication and power. Well, then maybe you should check out the Cadillac XT6 or the Escalade. Cars and trucks are coming. Call or contact Richard Carr online with what you want and let them know to get you on the first in-line priority list today and get your vehicle before anyone else. And if you're looking to save and drive today, Richard Carr is also loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks that all go through a 172-point inspection before hitting the lot. 100% credit approval is always the goal. So once again, you can go online or come by the dealership for a test drive today. And for those in Central Texas, Richard Carr is your local hometown dealership, so give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. Richard Carr Motors, owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on.
Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months and have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. Thank you, Genco. And don't forget, your vote counts. Vote today for your local school to win $1,500 with Genco's School Spirit Competition. For more information, go to gencofcu.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Sid was wide open downfield and a catch by Drew Estrada. Biggest play of the day for the Bears.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Presley in motion to the top of your screen. Sanders gets rid of it quickly, picked off. Threw it right to Tejada.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, this 4 o'clock hour, J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback, Baylor radio color analyst, joins us. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. J.J., thank you, sir, for your time. So Estrada all of a sudden shows up, and there's nothing involving the statistical line of R.J. Sneed. Tyquan Thornton had 3 catches. Ebner had no yards rushing. Was that Oklahoma State's defense, or did Baylor get out of whack on offense?
Hey, Smoke guys. Hey, thanks for having me on again. It's always a joy to join. I'll tell you, offensively, Smoke, we just weren't in rhythm. I mean, we started great. We had a 7-yard run by Abram Smith. Then we had the 7-yard catch by Estrada. And Estrada's he's good. I think really what you'll see is he and Josh Fleeks will have to vie for time because, R.J. Snead's going to play, Tyquan's going to play. But I think they really focused on those outside guys, and Drew had some opportunity. He did move outside some, and he just made a play. He was the one guy that made a play. But overall, Oklahoma State did what Iowa State did in that second half, and they really attacked us. And I think we just weren't fully ready for, kind of what they brought to the table.
JJ, is it time to maybe take the training wheels off of Gary Bohannon?
Well, I wouldn't say that Coach has training wheels on him. I think, Coach is trying to make sure that, as he is a first-time starter, as he gets the offense down where he wants to, where he actually masters it. I think, he's just kind of trying to make sure he manages the game with Gary. But now I would agree. I really think that a coach is going to have to, tell Gary, hey, look, you're a fourth-year player. We've been here through the spring and the summer. You're going to have to do a little bit more, whether that be at the line of scrimmage, maybe making a few changes, whether that be, throwing the ball in different situations because we've really been able to dictate when we wanted to throw it. And this week was the very first time we really had to do much of the third and long type offense, but roll that package out. But I think, Gary's going to, if this team wants to go where they would need to go, where Coach Aranda wants them to go, Gary's going to have to go ahead and be willing to, take a little bit more of the responsibility.
JJ, I know you just touched on it there with Estrada. I mean, he ate some of the other players' touches by being involved really for the first time. But R.J. Snead didn't have a catch for the first time since 2018. Is that insane to you or just a crazy stat to me?
Well, he should go talk to somebody. He could have ran him a little smoke screen or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To get himself. But I know there was a contested game, so you're just not thinking about that kind of stuff. But in any case, Oklahoma State is very aggressive, and I knew coming in they were aggressive. And Iowa State was not. Iowa State actually their first half played right into how we wanted to play offense. They wanted to read, they wanted to sit back and react, and that played into Baylor's offense, the offensive philosophy's hands. Oklahoma State's different. West Virginia's different. Texas will be different. Oklahoma will be different. And I think that was a great lesson that, hey, look, the Big 12 teams with these hybrid guys, for the most part, are not going to play like Iowa State. And a lot of times Kansas State played like that, where they sit back, read, bend, don't break. So you got to be prepared for teams to go downhill at you in the run game as well as when it's passing down. So, R.J. Snead not getting the catch, that won't happen again, not this season.
It's part of growing up. It's a young team. I asked Dave Aranda this on Monday, and Paul kind of alluded to this with Gary Bohannon, but he had an edge to him, JJ. After the game, he was obviously upset about the Matt Jones penalty, as he should have been, because he's been preaching that. And then he was still kind of in that mode on Monday. Did you see kind of a different edge to him? And it's almost like, okay, I've been saying this, and now I'm done saying it. We have to go do it.
Exactly. Matter of fact, Smoak, I don't know if you guys caught it. He didn't do a halftime interview.
We did.
Yeah, he was irritated. Ricky was trying to catch him, and I think he just snuck by Ricky. And I could tell. I mean, he was a little edgy. I forget which game it was. I think it may have been Iowa State, but he was a little edgy in one of the games. But that's the first time we've actually had that happen quite a bit. So he's a little irritated because I could tell he really is talking about those penalties. If you remember, he took Matt out immediately. I mean, Matt ran back out, and he took him out. And then when you go look at that penalty line, and I know it just irritates him because he looks at it and says, hey, despite the way we played offensively, we had the ball twice, down 3 with a chance to go ahead. And we didn't play good. He probably really didn't feel like they played good football. So he's been preaching it's going to cost us. It cost the team the other night. And that's, I'm pretty sure he really has emphasized that over the last few days.
Is it maybe it's a weird way to say this, and maybe around. I asked Ricky this the other day, that he has now an example to say, like, guys, I've been telling you this, I've been telling you this, I've been telling you this, and now you can see it in action and not just theory.
Well, yeah, that. I mean, you got the example. We have the example with Texas State. Like, if we play like this, a team that's of a lesser quality, I guess, for lack of a better term, will stay with us. But then, like you just said, Paul, I mean, it reared its ugly head and it bit you, because when you play a good team, and really for the most part, Baylor they're going to play good teams here on out, or teams that can beat you. People think about Tech struggling. Well, Tech just beat West Virginia. West Virginia's 1-3, but they're a darn good 1-3 team. So he does have that example. But I think more than that, I think Coach, man, somebody asked me, what about Coach Rand? I said, man, this dude's just a football coach. There's some guys who are head coaches. This guy's just a football coach, and he has a certain way he wants it to style and demeanor and character and all that he wants to play. And outside of, hey, I've been telling you it's going to bite you to bit you, he wants to win a certain way. And if you don't win that way, he's going to be on you more about that than anything else.
JJ, Jarrett Daigie's had, a bit of an up and down career at West Virginia, but last week he did have a huge second half to pull them within, a chance to win that football game despite the 17-0 early deficit. He's capable of throwing the ball around, and West Virginia's always got a good fleet of receivers. Letty Brown's back at running back, but the run game has been a struggle. At the same time, Baylor's defense has given up a lot of rushing yards the last couple of weeks. What are you looking for with the Baylor defense this week, and what areas maybe from last week do you think they need to clean up?
Yeah, I really think the Baylor defense, Oklahoma State got, 406 yards. But if you look at the game, our defense, they turned them over 3 times, had some untimely penalties. And really after that second half, after they got those 2 scores, really until that last drive that sealed the game, they had 3 points. And I think I wrote something for Ashton on Second 365 today that up until when Baylor went for it on 4th down, I think it was about maybe 8 minutes to go in the fourth, Oklahoma State had maybe 117 yards in the second half. So defensively, yes, there's always things we can do to clean up. There's some things they can play better. They can defend the run better. But I think our defense is playing winning football. Offensively, you got to if you get a team to 17 points late in the fourth, you got to make that win. You got to make that win. And offensively, we didn't make it win. Coach did everything he could do. He went for it on 4th down. He did everything he could do. So defensively, I really would like maybe. If I was just kind of nitpicking, I would say I would like for our front to continue to improve. I think Apu and Utley and Chitty and Cole Maxwell, Ashton Logan plays that jack position. They're playing better. They're playing good football. The backers are playing well. But to have Terrell Bernard back will help. But I would like to see our team, our front, really start putting pressure. Really what I would call aggressive pressure without Coach having to call blitzes. If I had a nitpick, and that's nitpicking now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, Craig, aren't you the one that brought that up even after a couple of the non-conference games, that might have come back to haunt them a little bit. But they did get 3 turnovers, and I guess that's also bad because
I just think that the turnovers are great, but they also were, deep into your territory, and they were like saving graces when Oklahoma State was in a position to score. So if teams have been able to, or at least Oklahoma State was able to move the football a bit, and then the turnovers really, I think JJ kind of saved that from being a way uglier game than it could have been, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, you're right. Now, I'm not going to disagree, but when a team gets 3 turnovers, part of that is playing defense because. Yeah. Spencer Sanders doesn't make that. He doesn't throw that first interception if the pressure doesn't come. And I forgot the player who hit him. But if that pressure doesn't come, he doesn't throw that. So that's defense. And then a couple others. Those were good defensive plays. And you're right that they moved the ball. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is force a team to either kick a field goal or turn it over. Mm-hmm. And defensively, the defense against Iowa State got some points, 29, but they were forcing them to kick field goals for a while. Right. And then the second half, think about it, the offense really didn't do much of anything.
Mm-mm. No.
This week, the offense didn't do much of anything in the whole first half. That's pressure on your D.
JJ, as a player, you've been in the locker room. You are obviously among the leaders when you were there, starting quarterback. What do you say? There's not much to say when a player who plays his ass off, excuse my language, in Matt Jones, who's all over the place and has done a great job with Terrell Bernard being out, who's supposed to be back this week. Does anything have to be said to a player who makes a boneheaded play like that?
Their coach is going to handle it. But let me say this, Smoak. In a locker room, you have all types of guys. you have guys who are thinking every second. You have guys who are critical, analytical, and then you have those guys who are just football players. They don't think until it's over. And you got to have them. And I'm not saying Matt is that kind of guy, but typically they're linebackers and, certain
fullbacks.
Types. Yeah, thank you. And the Smoak, really outside of telling Matt, Matt, hey, man, you're hurting us, don't hurt us. And his teammates saying, don't hurt us. And his teammates have to help govern him.
Right.
Because I can tell you, when Matt gets in the game, he's emotionally invested. I mean, everything is personal. And you got to have guys like him, and you can't sit him on the bench. You cannot sit him on the bench because those type of guys, you got to have that energy, you got to have that focus, and you just got to have a team of guys that are around him that can help manage him. And he'll get there. He's a sophomore? I mean, he'll get there and learn it, how to govern it, but man, you just got to have a group of guys that help you manage him while on the field.
Yeah, it's a game in which it's so violent, and I know they've changed it up a little bit, but I mean, I'd rather have them than not. It's just a matter of, you could lose a game because of a temper tantrum or a personal foul, and I'm not trying to blame him. I know Dave Aranda made it pretty clear that play cost him the game, but yeah, you don't want to temper him so much he loses who he is as a football player.
Yeah, exactly, Smoak. And look, Matt will mature more. I mean, I think he played some last year, helped me out here, but I mean, this is the first real action I think Matt is getting. He got some. So he'll get there, and coaching him. Now, don't get me wrong when I say you can't sit him down. Coach he'll limit his playing time some. He'll see some, but ultimately you just don't have a team full of like guys who can play like Matt Jones. And if you don't have this in Alabama, Alabama can roll 6 or 7 of those guys in probably. So when you got a guy like that, you're just trying to hope that he hurry up and he matures, and that you have teammates like Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie, Dylan Doyle, and guys who are a little bit more level-headed that will help calm him down when it gets edgy.
Yeah, if you've got a guy who's a wild dog, you want him to go out there and be a wild dog. You just hope that, maybe he doesn't bite too much. I think that's with Matt Jones. I don't know if you saw it, JJ, but the play before he committed the penalty, they were pulling him off. I mean, he was getting pulled. He was already was already hot about something, and then there weren't enough plays between the time he made tackles to calm him down from whatever happened before.
Yeah, and probably what coach will have to do, he'll probably have to manage his playing time, meaning that he maybe gets subbed a little bit more, right? Maybe you sub him, maybe you don't keep him in a certain string of plays, but yeah, and it looks like when I saw the play, I looked at it on tape. It went to the sideline. He was on top of it. He did something, looks like. Then he got up, and then it's like I saw the Baylor sideline guys were pushing him back because he said something. And then the ref came over. It sounded like he said something else. I don't know if he swung or the ref caught some wind of some language, but then that's when the flag came. So he, you just got to have some guys help manage him, man. But he will have to mature, which he'll do.
JJ, appreciate it. Ought to be interesting. They have 4 weeks at home. An off week.
That's great.
After back-to-back off week, and then home again with Texas. But if they're gonna jump right back in it surely is right there in front of them. And with getting Terrell Bernard appears to be back, that sure doesn't hurt either.
Time to make hay.
Yep, it is. Thank you, JJ. As always, appreciate your stuff and knowledge and insight. And we didn't even ask Ricky on Monday about Coach Aranda just flying right by him.
I didn't want to.
Yeah, he didn't want to bring up a bad shot.
I did. I was listening, or I wasn't listening to the radio broadcast. I was watching TV, but because that first half was so ugly, I was like, I better check out what he has to say. I'm curious to hear what he has to say. And so I flipped open the link or whatever to the radio broadcast, and he just went on by, and I was like, all right, X out. And so I was on there for like 20 seconds because I was waiting for him, and then there he was straight into the locker room. So that's something that he can't do on a regular basis, for Ricky's sake and for the broadcast crew's sake. But I think that one time last week, given the situation, it made sense. And then they played better in the second half. And I absolutely agree with what JJ's saying. I'm not by any means saying the Baylor defense isn't any good or anything like that, but they have bent a lot, and you can't always rely on the interception. But he's right. Like, one of those is as a result of pressure and forcing Sanders to make a bad throw. And they're going to have to do that this weekend against Daggy. He's going to be throwing the football. Because if he's not, that means they're running the football, and if they are, that means that your defense is completely cratered because they're not running the football on anybody right now. Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't start this weekend. So that means that Doege's going to have to throw them to a win, or Garrett Green's going to be a big part of the running game. They have to account for that. But basically, Doege's going to have to throw them to a win unless you crater and let them run the football. And you know what? Maybe he can do that. He can do that, but I like their chances. They haven't given up a lot in the passing game this year, if you really think about it. Most teams have just run on them. So this will be a challenge for the secondary for sure, and for the D-line and linebackers to force Doege to make some errant throws.
You know what, Doege, and Dred Jerning brought up the fact that Doege had this very accurate second half.
He did, but
I do think, here's what I think about Dred Doege. He can make a lot of the throws. But what defenses are challenging him to do is make this throw that we know that you can't make in this key spot, and he can't do it.
What the problem to me is that he's like Spencer Sanders. He is hot and cold. Mm-hmm. That's what he is. If you look at the first half last week, he has a strip sack, fumble, and an interception, and takes up 14-0. And then in the second half, he throws for like 1 billion yards, and they come back and they tie the game up, and they nearly win it. So that's Jekyll and Hyde. And you look at Jarret Doege, it's a lot of Jekyll and Hyde. You look at Spencer Sanders, it's a lot of Jekyll and Hyde. He made some great plays last week. He also threw 3 picks that Baylor should have won the football game off of, but their offense just couldn't score on Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State won with defense and, was able to overcome that. West Virginia's good enough on defense to overcome Jarret Doege throwing 3 picks if, again, the Baylor offense can't do anything with the football. But which version of him shows up, that's what's interesting because he is very much like, to me, Spencer Sanders in that regard of,
it's a good comparison,
bad and ugly, and just which one shows up, you don't really know.
That segment, by the way, the Baylor segment is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, the Baylor Bear Hotline, JJ Joe, and in fact about to be again when we speak with and interview Jovan Overshown, who's going to tell us about some of what they noticed too, what they've heard, and what's going on with game day atmosphere, tailgating, the berm, and everything else in between.
I'll say this: I was putting together players to watch, and I did put Doege on there. But that's because of what I just said. Like, he's going to be a factor in this game one way or the other. Is he throwing picks or is he throwing touchdowns? And that will determine a lot in this football game. And Baylor's defense will have a say in what he is able to do effectively. But you look around the rest of that team. They got a good fleet of receivers. They've got, Letty Brown, although, like we've been saying, the running game hasn't been there. But on that defensive side, I'm just sitting there looking at, players to watch. You could name everybody on that defense practically. Mm-hmm. Like the entire D-line, you could name every single one of those guys from Stills to Alston. Was it Ade or Ade? West Virginia fan, please help me out. I can't remember right now. But, they're loaded on defense. And I'm very curious to see what Baylor's going to be able to do offensively because – they don't give up much at all. And they get in the backfield, and Gary Bohannon's going to have his head on a swivel on Saturday for sure.
Some of you in the chat room, and then eventually Jovan will join us to answer a lot of your questions. Donnie Hand, by the way, picking off Spencer Sanders is nothing to hang your hat on. No. It's still, they got them.
I'm just saying that he throws a lot of them or he throws touchdowns, and it's a matter of, what half he's playing in, and that was Doege last week. That's what I mean by that.
Spencer Sanders Interception Club is diverse and populated as Madonna boyfriends. So
Bob Williams,
there's a lot of people.
There you go. Scotty B, linebackers need to step up in the run defense as well. Here's from Jimmy B. Jeff Grimes needs to trust Gary Bohannon more. He hasn't thrown an interception all year. Let him throw the rock. And he's also going to have to learn how to throw an interception. I know that sounds stupid. It's like you got to learn to strike out or miss a field goal or whatever. You got to face some of that so you see how you react to it as well. Let's see.
I am with JJ, though. I don't think that they're holding him back. I think in some cases, Gary holds himself back. Yeah. Gary doesn't make a great throw, and then the offense is in a hole. And then all of a sudden it's, Jeff Grimes, why is he doing this on second down? It's like, because Gary just missed a throw and it's 2nd and 10.
The issue with Jeff Grimes last week was some of the third down calls and stuff like that. It wasn't, and again, we don't know what's going on with the game plan and much more.
But my point is that if Gary hits on some of those throws, then the offensive play calling is not what it was described to be because they would have more of an opportunity to challenge a defense. But
there were some throws that were just like a pitcher having a bad night. The strike zone was out. They were, like a young pitcher didn't know how to throw anything but fastballs.
Right, but, with Bohannon, I think one thing where he does probably hold himself back, and if he was going to let loose in any single way, it would be to run the football. But when he took that big pop against Iowa State, we haven't really seen him run the football since then. So I'm wondering if that's like a protection thing or a what, because there are opportunities for him to do that, and sometimes you see him just wait to try and find the throw, and then he tries to take off, and it's a second too late.
I love that he's waiting, but there's an instinct that he'll learn over time and reps and game, where sometimes I love the fact he's sticking in the pocket, but at the same time there's opportunities to run. From Daniel, sometimes in the heat of the moment, you temporarily lose your mind. Look at BG. Brittany Griner, after the tech incident, she didn't do anything else like that again. Matt Jones will be okay. He'll learn from that experience.
I got to see raw video. A friend of mine was there covering the game in Lubbock and sent us the raw video on my phone. I remember seeing it going of Brittany Griner, and I was like, oh, man. I mean, and she played violently. But she had to, because she was
taking a beating herself.
She was running through 10 hands, getting slapped every time she was playing. And I remember that was with Jordan Barncastle. That was the last straw. I'll remember that name, Jordan Barncastle, for the rest of my life, and mostly because of the post-game nonsense that happened afterwards. But yeah, I mean, after that, Brittany didn't do anything.
No, they still kept beating on her. Yeah,
there were some people, and I know it's probably some of them were drinking, and some of it was the heat of the moment. But calling for Matt Jones to be booted off the team and craziness like that, and I'd never have thought like that was even worth.
No one
thinking
ever said
of,
that. Yeah.
But, I'm with you. I think that it was an ugly moment for him, a learning lesson, and it happens sometimes in the heat of battle, and he'll be fine. I think they've got a lot of optimism of where his career is headed and what he can do and what he's been doing. So I think Matt Jones will be fine. He just learned a tough lesson on Saturday.
You know what? Who's the young man at Baylor who got all the targeting calls, who's now in the NFL?
Chris Miller.
Chris Miller hurt the team a lot. Sometimes he's playing hard. That's the way he played, and he eventually, I don't know if he ever got better with it. He became a target himself based on, he's blown somebody up, it's got to be targeting. And so you got to be careful. It's a fine line of asking him not to play the way he's always played the game, with the exception of when it's temper or discipline, then you're going to have to intervene a little bit better.
Yeah, Chris Miller was a little bit out of control at times, but that was also just these terrible targeting rules in some cases as well, although his were,
Any
pretty
kind of
clear
explosive
cut.
play, the flag, that's why the good replay now that you can do that.
For him, what ended up hurting the most was not even necessarily the penalties. It was the fact that you didn't know when he was going to be available, because he was suspended so often for targeting calls that you're like, is he going to play in the first half next week, or is he... it became that all of a sudden because it was happening so often, it felt like. And that was where a big issue came in. But Matt Jones will be fine.
Last comment, and then we go to a break. Jimmy B, overall, the Baylor offense reminded me too much in Stillwater of the 2020 offense. Let's hope it looks better this week, and they do as well. When we come back.
It did. I thought so too.
Last week we had Mac Rhodes on, and we had questions for him about the game day atmosphere, the berm, the seating, the tailgating, all of that. And then eventually I took a bunch of your email, printed every one of them, took a folder to Lauren Smith outside of the Baylor Athletics office administration. She then presented it to everybody she could based on a PowerPoint presentation, whatever you want to call it. Jovan Overshone, she knows all about some of what you're saying, wants to hear more, and we'll have her next to answer questions on Sikkim 365 Radio. Right now, City of Woodway, Jesse Reed, Director of Event Facilities, Communication, and Tourism, sent me this note. They have tables available for their Oktoberfest event coming up on October the 14th. That's a week from tomorrow. And we want you to go. If you want, text me, 254-339-1122. If you would like to go to the Oktoberfest event, City of Woodway is putting on October the 14th. And there will be music and more. I've told you about discoverwoodway.com on Instagram. More announcements coming about special events, wine and food festivals and all that, tastings. That's great. The Woodway Family Center continues to be busy. Clinics at the parks, including flag football and sand volleyball for ages 5 to 10 and 8 to 11, and more sports coming. Download the Discover Woodway app in the App Store and Google Play as well. Great option also, the hotels they have in Woodway, 7 of them. If you're in town for a Baylor football game, eventually basketball, in town to watch what's going on with the Silos, Magnolia, Balcones, or more. It's discoverwoodway.com.
The 2021 Ram brand just received first place in the prestigious J.D. Power's initial quality study. The Dodge brand finished second to Ram, and the 2021 Jeep Gladiator is first among all midsize trucks. Quality and Ram Power Days. Only at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue.
It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
All right. Last Tuesday, Mac Roach joined us in a part of the segment. We discussed some of the things that are going on during game day, the atmosphere. We have tried to get information from you and try to clear the air on some things that people either are not sure about, need suggestions to Baylor, whatever. Jovan Overshone, she joins us. She's the president of Baylor Athletics, I think she is, based on her role. As Mac Roach has said, she's a rock star. You ready for this?
Hey, let's go. And hey, that's how rumors get started. Don't you say that. Look, Dr. Livingstone is the absolute best there is. So
Well, no, but you're the president of the athletic department, and Mac Rhodes knows that. All right, so let's start. There's like 3 or 4 chunks here, but let's start with the Berm. What is the truth about the Berm? Was it maybe something that was misjudged on who would sit there, the number of students? What is the policy now? And kind of explain what happened with the people at the Berm.
Yeah, you're not lying when you say we're just jumping right in. No, this is awesome. No, the Berm, yeah, I mean, I think that is one of the most critical parts of the in-game experience, in my opinion. And from what we know from teams, current and present, I mean, it's just a really cool space to have an impactful, high energy experience. It's loud. It's close to the field of play. So it's something special about our venue. But so this year, and I'm sure it's been talked about on here before, I know Mac has mentioned it, we had a record-breaking freshman class. So we had over 4,000 students in this class, which is far surpasses, past years. And so, in preparation for how we're going to serve our students and serve our students well, in partnership with student activities, they came to us very proactively and said, hey, we want to make sure that we have opportunity for all of our students to be part of the experience and in venues. So we decided prior to this season that we were going to dedicate that space to them and honestly see how demand went. We wanted to create an opportunity and, awesome. If that space, along with the student section in the stands, is packed with students, I mean, how awesome is that? But basically what we saw is that, after game one, game two, the demand clearly decreased. Even game one wasn't a full berm, but from game one to game two, we saw a pretty substantial decrease and really not a need for the students to have that berm section. So, being the good partners that they are, student activities and myself, we got together and, I just said, hey, how about we pull back the berm so that we can allow opportunity for our incredible fans to fill that space and allow us to have the competitive advantage that our team deserves, and you guys keep it for the premium game. So students will still have the opportunity to fill that space for BYU, UT, and Oklahoma, but for all other games, we're selling it. So you actually might have seen a few minutes before we hopped on here, we actually released a $5 berm special to really pack that out for this coming game, and we're actually almost sold out on the berm. So we're excited. This is a lot of it is, it's a give and take. You see how things play out. And again, we have great partners in student activities, and Matt Burchett and Dakota and his team are good partners of mine on a day-to-day basis. And so we saw how it went, and then we decided it's time to shift. And so now it's available to everybody. So we need to pack it out.
If it's a premium game and by Wednesday or so, it doesn't appear if the students are going to fill that area, would you release that ticket area?
Yep. I mean, and that's the thing. Obviously, game by game, we're assessing, and we'll do the same thing, assessing various areas, but we'll do the same thing for those spaces. So if it looked to be that the demand wasn't going to be there, then certainly we'd go back and have a conversation and reevaluate. However, I don't anticipate those games will be an issue, but yes, we absolutely would.
All right, Javon, I wanted to ask about the tailgate area, which,
sure.
2 years ago when, the last time you had it full was vibrant and full. You guys made the switch to the tailgate guys, which I think the reasoning in switching to tailgate guys has been lost on a lot of people. For you guys, first and foremost, before anything else, it was just a staffing issue of where you needed your game operations people to be all day long, and having them in the tailgate area for hours and hours before the actual game was spreading you really thin. So that's why you went out to it. So far, it's not as packed and as vibrant as it was. How do you guys address that moving forward to get back to where you were, which was a fantastic tailgating scene right there on the river?
Yeah, well, I think it's easy for people to struggle with change. I mean, I do. I'm one of those people. I mean, it's any change is difficult, especially when you are enjoying the experience that you were having prior to. So, I mean, we recognize that any shift is going to be difficult, and we hadn't made a change in our tailgating since, Floyd Casey days. So, this is obviously a substantial transition and financial and even in layout and administration and all of that. But it's a direction that, our colleagues across the country have transitioned and shifted in administration. A lot of it is personnel, but also in just being able to consistently execute an experience, for our fan base. So, yes, it definitely opens up personnel. That was a key driver for us, but we certainly didn't want to eliminate the experience and the fun of the scene. So that's where there are some options. And, that's why by the law school, there still is that space and opportunity for people to kind of do things as they wish. But from a capacity standpoint, I get it that there is transition and it looks and feels differently for some. But, as of where we are right now, from a tailgating capacity standpoint and total numbers of tailgates, we are actually the second biggest property in our region. And you've got some pretty substantial competition as far as institutions in this particular region. So we are pacing well. We are trending well. We want the experience to be positive though. So, any concerns that there have been, whether it be, on execution of quality, or if there was a bad experience, or if, there was a dirty chair or a dirty tent or something like that, those things matter to us because we certainly don't want to diminish service or experience for anyone. But we also recognize this is a transition. All changes are. So, we recognize that it's not going to be an overnight flip the switch. We're back to where we were. But we are trending well.
Jovan, is it also something that, and I don't know how, when you deal with like a corporate group, if that's what I could call the tailgate guys, whatever, that is it also up to them at times as well to maybe give and take a little bit on some of their own policies?
Yeah, and that's where I will really give them a lot of credit in that we really approach this differently. I mean, they reminded me of that many times in the process, and those that were involved in that we required say in the process. I think there's a lot of institutions they would go into and, hey, this is the carte blanche. This is it. This is the package. This is how this is price point. We're still lower than any of our lower in price point than any of our other conference schools. I know we said that when we rolled out. That was important to us because for us, this isn't a revenue play. Primarily, this has never been it. But yeah, we have had a lot of input and say so in stewarding our people well in quality and service has always been of utmost importance. So we have been we've been attached at the hip. I spoke to the GM even this morning on some things, just checking in. So my team here has a weekly check-in with them. I mean, I'm still, although we're not facilitating the administration of the tailgate or schlepping, tents or lights or anything like that right now, we are still engaged from a standpoint of ensuring that if there are any issues, there's troubleshooting as appropriate. And so we're still engaged, and it's different for them than most properties, but that's who we are. Our fans are family, so we're going to do the best that we can to ensure that, the experience is as positive as possible.
Did you burn that folder that I took to Lauren Smith and just is that part of someone's fireplace now?
Oh, no, I just made little, I made paper airplanes and decorated my desk with it.
I want to give Lauren Smith, I want to give Lauren Smith an amazing amount of credit, too. As you know, Jovan, I dropped that off. I told everyone I would. I got a tremendous amount of feedback. I printed every one of them. And then she turned that into kind of almost a spreadsheet for you guys, didn't she?
Yes. She is a rock star. It's actually funny you said that. So I had Mac and I had our regular one-on-one meeting today, and that was literally one of the things I said. I said, look, just in case you haven't said anything nice to her today, here's one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's phenomenal. And I really, for us, like I said, it matters. It matters to me, people's experience across the board. And yeah, she did a phenomenal job of turning your deck into a very nicely organized and categorized 2-page document.
So I want to go back to one thing you said about the tailgate guys. So this is not where they are giving you a lot of money that you then don't care how it looks, right? This is not like they're going to give Baylor tons and tons of money, no matter if people are mad or no matter if anyone's showing up or many. Nope. That's not a money-making endeavor.
That has never been how we approach this. Now, look, if we were losing money on it, then that wouldn't be a logical decision at all. Sure. But we are not, our goal in pursuing this was to provide additional opportunities for tailgating. I don't know if you remember, when we first had this conversation way back pre-COVID days, We had a long waiting list of people that would never get an opportunity just because of, lack of availability of land based on our current structure. So, our primary focuses were to continue to still honor the tailgating tradition that we have, but provide greater opportunities, free up personnel to do more of what they were brought here and skilled to do, and better administration of that area. So yes, obviously there's revenue involved in all things. This is not one of those key revenue driving factors where the decision is made based on what we're getting from this.
Okay, no, go ahead.
At
Paul.
all.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the other things we got a lot on the board and on the chat room, I'm sure it was on the emails as well, was in-game atmosphere. People were concerned about, which I think is probably maybe your quickest fix of anything you can do. But music and things like that, like how often are those things kind of discussed on how to maybe synergize all that or change it up, refresh it, keep it different?
Look, this is my jam. This is so important, so let me just first say, like, the passion of people in sports is absolutely beautiful. Like, you might disagree on politics, but those same individuals can passionately agree on the distaste for a hype video or song choice. I mean, it's awesome. But yeah, no, total in-game production, specifically music and timing and all of that, it's so poetic when it goes just right. But this has been one of those years where we have, a lot of things have changed. Maybe I should have said this on the front end, but, our department looks different. My external team looks different. The industry looks different. Various industries look different. But, there have been, fans have been away for 2 years, really. I mean, we haven't been full capacity. We had with COVID and everything. You're back in the stadium, and quite honestly, we're seeing across the country a different perspective and a different lens that our fans, everywhere are looking at the game day production and experience. So quite honestly, it's just different. We're hearing a lot of things that we worked 2-3 years ago to transition away for, now people are clamoring for. So it's an example would be, all the in-game promotions and, name that tune or, follow this on the Jumbotron and, which Whataburger cup is it under, all those types of things, and others, on-field promotions and recognition. Like, those are things that at one point were exhaustive to people. And so we really work to clean up our script, second half of the game, we want to keep the energy high, clean it up. And now, we're getting some feedback of, hey, where are all the fun things? So I just, and I don't say that to be critical. I just say, things change. A lot has changed, in preferences and tastes. And then quite honestly, my team has changed. Our athletic department has changed. Athletics it's a challenging industry. I love it so much. And so do the people that work here, but it's changed. I mean, you called COVID the year of the great, following COVID, this is being coined right now as the year of the great resignation. You Google it, you can look it up. There's tons of, articles by people far probably more intelligent than I am on this, but people are leaving the industry. They're shifting, they're changing. And so we have a very new team, some phenomenal people, but we've even had some transitions in timing that, we celebrated them, we helped them, but in timing that isn't ideal for a football season. And so we are growing. I mean, that's where I think I look to part of that Baylor family perspective and lean in and say, we're finding our stride as a new team right now. So there's a little bit of that. So, the first game, not really in hiccups. The second game, we had some timing issues. I mean, there were things that from a timing perspective did not lay out as poetically, like I referenced earlier, as we would want it to. But otherwise, I mean, it's changed. Music is a huge topic of conversation. Whether people realize it or not, this year we actually brought in a DJ. We thought this would be, just a neat way to interject some energy. He sits in the student section to kind of play off of the students. And, we actually then this week have brought in we've consulted with one of the top DJs in the country on playlists and things, because again, we've seen music preferences have changed. I don't know if you saw recently, I think it was last week, the AD at Alabama hired a music consultant to improve music selection. So it's not just here, but we're working on ways to better engage, and we're working on shifting based on preferences right now. And we're going to be asking our fans for suggestions. I mean, I think later this, whether they want me to say it now or not, later this afternoon, we'll be soliciting requests for our DJ of what music do you want to hear. Now we might not be able to play all of it. There's a vast range of preferences, but we are working on that. We're working on with the band. This whole Bruin Pride, like there will be a more prominent. We play it right now. I don't think people realize that, but we will have a more prominent point when we play that, so it's intentional and people are aware of that. But yeah, it's just changing preferences and us adjusting and changing with where our fans are. That's part of the beauty of it, and we'll work together and we'll get it right.
Well, we did have one guy send us a playlist that would have made for an amazing game in 1993. So if you want that, we will send it along for Throwback Day.
Well, 90s Throwback Game, yes.
Jovan, I also noticed there was, what was it? Somebody was asking about the band. Why don't they play this song anymore? And you had to point out to them, like, no, they still play this song. Like, it's just, are there some things that people just maybe don't notice that are in fact in place or happening, and just maybe it's slow to pick up?
Yeah, I mean, I give so much grace for that. Games are long, and there's a lot of, hopefully there's a lot of excitement happening that you are paying attention to the field and not necessarily all the other elements at times. I get it. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is also, again, where, you know, things that have shifted. Like, this wasn't something that has been pressed in years past, you know, but it was played 2 years ago. And, but now I think with new focuses, on the game experience, you know, now it's noticed. So that's where, again, having great partners, you know, Isaiah with the band, you know, we had conversations and said, what can we do? You know, how can we, I know this used to be kind of the march into the stadium with the band. What can we do to make this a more prominent part of the experience that triggers that nostalgia for those that were here before, but also becomes something, again, a new tradition for those new in the venue. So, the band has you know, it's hard to shift, and they've been great and heard, you know, all the many suggestions I pass on. And one has been, we often get complaints recently about the band just on third down, they're playing on top of everybody, you know, and it was at one time, they just wanted to make noise. Like, so that was intentional, and their desire at the time with the prior staff that, hey, make noise, create chaos, play on top of music, on band, on everything. And now it's like, hey, let's create something more consistent, a better tradition of, you know, how we handle third downs and those things. So we just have to evolve with our fan base. And at the end of the day, we want to create a competitive environment for our team. We want to win.
Jovan, there are a lot of people in your position, and obviously with Mac last week and even yesterday, that would not come on and answer some of the questions. There's some people that would not even take the folder with what you and Lauren and Mac did. I mean, seriously, there are some, but I do think that it's helped. The $5, the Berm tickets that are out there, you mentioned, that's out. We, as Sikkim 365, are also working. We're going to try to have some tickets available to various organizations through that as well, through our membership, donating towards us getting clumps of tickets to turn around and pass along as well, which I know you know that Baylor is wanting as many people with butts in the seat as possible. And that's great. I mean, I don't know if we haven't touched. I think we pretty much touched on most everything that I can think of.
I've got one more comment just to say, because I think this is important. I mean, I think, and I think we've had some great people that have brought this up, and it was in your folder. But that we've got to, together as a Baylor family, as a community, we've got to educate one another on it's okay to be loud. And when you buy a ticket, show up. Yeah. Show up, be loud, stay the game. I've had several people inform me that, you know, they're tapped when they're loud or when they're rowdy and asked to, like, quiet or sit down. and again, this is just the changing evolution of our fan base. And I think, the more we can work together, and we need to do our part, my team, whether that's educational videos or social or, we are in a season where we need people there. We need to know you're there. And we need you to stay. And I think that's where together, we just have such an incredible fan base that I think we can help one another in that.
Yeah,
space.
I think I can say this. I think there's sometimes a conflict between young, excited, and I'm not using the word maybe rowdy, but it can be, and those who want to act like it's a church service. I think that it's just like, oh my God, it's too loud. You're standing up in front of me. It's a football game. And, if you're a fan, we're in the press box. We sit there and we can't do anything. But if we were at a game as a fan, I think we would all have our moments when we got up and got excited, whatever team we were following as well. I'm glad you brought that up as well. Jovan, thank you as always. We appreciate your time, as always.
Appreciate you.
That's Jovan Overshone. She's, as they've called her, the rock star. Lauren Smith now, the rock star. On Mac Rhodes' staff in Baylor Athletics.
Well, I know that it might not be, for like a Pitt fan, like anything of interest really, or like a UCLA fan or something maybe watching. But, we cover Baylor, and that's been a big bugaboo these, last couple of games, is all the various in-game stuff and whatnot. And so I'm glad that Jovan had the, the confidence and just the ability to come on with us and talk about it and clear the air on some things. Because I do think there are a lot of complaints that are made that I see sometimes that people are just wrong about what they're talking about. Like that song, for example. It's like, why don't we play this song anymore? It's like, we do play this song every single week. You just haven't noted. You just, maybe that leads to them doing it in a different spot where it's more spotlighted or something. But, it's better to be like, hey, why is this happening rather than this is such BS, why, and get angry about it like some people choose to do. And, a lot of those people who are probably telling the folks to sit down are also the ones that don't like the music, or also the ones that don't like the concessions. And
I want to hear more Neil Diamond. But it's a mix. It's a give and take at times.
Yes, it can't be your perfect game setting where the music's to your liking and the food's to your liking and the seats to your liking and the game's to your liking and everything's. It's not customized for you. It's a mix of people with different energy and different yelling and different everything,
To make Baylor fans feel better, I went to an Alabama A&M game a few years ago with my mom, my dad, my uncle, and they were playing hip-hop music in the stands. I think it was maybe the first year they'd really done that, and there were some people behind us, Alabama fans, that were incensed about some of the music selection. I don't know if it was the first time, but it had been like they were talking about how in this season there had been this huge change in the music, and this guy was just going on. I mean, it's about the second quarter. And we're A&M fans in this thing, there. And I would just turn around to the guy and said, hey, why does it bother you? He said, well, I hate this music. I said, you know who doesn't hate the music? You see those 20 recruits that are sitting right there?
That's exactly right.
That are doing this?
Yeah.
They're not doing this for you. They've got your money, buddy. They've got it. Mm-hmm. They need that guy so that they continue to get your money. So again, you might have to just grin and bear it. And we had a good chuckle about it. He goes, I didn't think about it that way. I said, they're not doing it for you. Those students over there that are
jumping up and down and
You sat down in the second quarter because your knee was hurting. That's fine.
I can promise you. You're right, Paul. I can promise you, though, no recruit ever walked away and was like, man, I really love that quiet crowd. Yeah. That was awesome. I would love to play in front of that crowd that sits down 95% of the time.
Honestly, I enjoyed that Elton John ballad.
If there was a recruit that was like, I really, really like that they played Candle in the Wind, let's sign that guy just for the difference. But come on,
There is something that's on the site, Sikkim365.com. Cole Barber talked to me about this earlier today. We, as a membership, are taking donations in which we will then turn around and take that money, all of it, and buy tickets and then give it to organizations around the Waco community and elsewhere. So if you're interested, and we're going to do it for this week's game with West Virginia and then see what it's like going forward when there's a clump of tickets available. Tickets are $5. The tickets through this promo will be $5, just like the Berm tickets. Directly on this website, in the premium section, you can go to the link. It says donate here, click here, all of the instructions you need. The name of the actual thread, donate $5 or more for a ticket to be donated to the West Virginia game for various organizations around the city of Waco. All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, we'll have 5:30 John Machota. We need to get to your chat. and also text. And let's open up the phone lines. We haven't done that yet today, and it's time to do that as well at 254-339-1122.
And when we come back, Jalen Smith already has a new home.
Jalen Smith, and also news as well on a couple of other things in football, college and pro. Sikkim 365 Radio. Here in front of me, thanks to Brian Bauer, he sent me the newest, the items of the week. Talked to him by text a couple of times earlier today because it's time for me to go by and see the great product and pick up mine for the month or two, including customized cut bone-in ribeyes and hamburger beef and meat and even on occasion I'll throw in like a 3 or 4 pound prime rib and stick that in the smoker and enjoy it. Select New York strip steak from $9.25 a pound for select. Choice at $10.25 a pound. Prime New York strip $16.99 a pound. That's open. That's now. Those are specials for this week. Chicken tenders $3.50 a pound. Boneless pork butt $2.25 a pound. Marinated beef and chicken fajita meat from $3.25 a pound for chicken, $6.99 a pound for beef fajitas. All of this great for tailgating for the West Virginia game coming up Saturday, or Brigham Young and eventually Texas at the end of the month. Smoked mozzarella cheese, $11.99 a pound, and regular lump crabs, or if you want an appetizer, maybe some finger food for $26.25 a pound, but it's, again, lump crab. It's delicious. And don't forget the smoked pork tenderloin. Tri-tip, brisket, sausage, wings, ribs. Waco Custom Marketplace, your tailgate store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion. And I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic.
Just a sneak for Prescott, and he's in. Touchdown.
Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, thanks to a lot of you on the YouTube 365 Sports who are fans of other programs around the country. That was something we have been trying to do as a liaison between fans, message boards, social media, Baylor athletics, and I just think that it's now, hopefully people can move on and still leave suggestions, but it sounds like Mac, Jovan, Lauren, others have all been listening with that $5 offer for the Berm, and then also what they're doing as well with many things on game day. So, last night, Jalen Smith released by the Cowboys. Didn't think it'd be long. Somebody would pick him up. Not everybody has what they need. What's going on with Jalen Smith?
Apparently, he's signing a deal with the Packers. He's going to be headed to Green Bay and joining that organization, so it didn't take him long. I'll still say, though, as much as, people might not have thought it would take him long to get picked up, the fact that it even happened is still shocking to me. Like, the fact that they made this move when they did, out of complete nowhere, I mean, even if you thought, okay, well, no, he's at least not played well, still, you don't cut him right now. Like, a guy like that, when do you see that in the NFL? I mean, hardly ever in season. So I'm still shocked by the fact that they just so swiftly made that move. But, Jalen Smith apparently is headed to Green Bay to join up with the Packers. I don't know how much interest he had elsewhere, but, good for him. Won't be official till tomorrow morning per Rappaport. But, I guess they needed some help with linebacker, and Jalen Smith's the guy they're going to call on to try and provide some help.
Matt LaFleur was also at Notre Dame when Jalen Smith played there, so there's a connection there. And, like Jalen Smith, he was – based on everything I've read and heard, he was what Bill Parcells called a progress stopper at this point, where, you kind of saw the writing on the wall early on. Like, they asked him at the end of last year, and we'll ask Machota this about coming back for 2021. He's like, well, watch the tape. Well, okay, the first-round draft pick was a linebacker, a very, very talented, skilled linebacker who can do a lot of different things that Jalen Smith just frankly cannot do. One of the first 2 free agent signings was a linebacker. The 4th-round draft pick was a linebacker. So that wasn't because, and part of that was also because Leighton Vander Esch is an impending free agent. But at the position, the Cowboys had to get better, and if they didn't have to get better, they wouldn't have spent that much capital, even on a 1-year deal with Keanu Neal, bringing somebody in. And now you're going to see Keanu Neal playing a lot more. You're going to see Jabril Cox playing a lot more, and Micah Parsons for the first 4 games has been an absolute home run of a draft pick at 11, or whatever they wound up drafting him after the trade back. But one of the best picks they've made in years for immediate impact. And, Jalen Smith doesn't have a role anymore. He doesn't fit the defense. He doesn't fit what they do. So hopefully for Jalen, he fits with the Packers and he fits well. So best of luck and onward and upward.
And I want to clarify, it's not official. I mean, that's the likely landing spot that people are pointing to. Apparently, there's other teams in the mix, but, the arrows are pointing towards Jalen Smith in Green Bay. And he's going to land somewhere, obviously, because even if it's not there, although they're the favorites, then other teams do appear to have an interest in talking to him or signing him potentially. But, that looks to be the odds-on favorite right now. Nothing official, like I said. Wouldn't be until tomorrow morning, if anything, at the earliest. But, we're going to see him on the move soon, one way or the other.
Yeah, so good luck to him. Good kid, good young man, and good luck to him. So this is an NFL note that I just had, and I haven't used it, so I'm going to throw it away after this. If the Eagles in the season ended today, they would have the 5th, 7th, and 8th overall picks in the 2022 NFL Draft. 5th, 7th, and 8th picks. That's 3 of the top 10. Others, I'm sure, that doesn't happen a lot, but,
Well, I bet they're hoping for that to end exactly that way.
Yes.
That's what I would want.
They are. 3 top 10 picks? Yeah, I would think so, yep.
Yeah. That probably, if you hit on all 3, that's going to hurt your salary cap in 4 years, but I do, or 5 years, that could be a potentially earth-shattering thing. And, especially if, so say you like Jalen Hurts at the end of the year. Part of the reason you made all the moves you did was to kind of guard against if Jalen Hurts wasn't ready to be a full-time starter. Well, what if you like him? What if he's your guy going forward? That means that you can get 3 people to support and make the rest of the team better as opposed to having to start a quarterback again. So the Eagles have put themselves in a good position after they had the great Super Bowl run where they made all these great personnel decisions and they all worked out. And then after that, in the immediate aftermath of that Super Bowl, none of them did. It was like they were just for the 2 years. And so now this looks like maybe something that's working out for them.
Yeah, so good luck to Jalen Smith. Good dude. Incredible story. And the Cowboys, again, whatever happens, if that becomes official, when it does with Green Bay, but that's not going to be a problem. All right, we have not taken your calls today. We've talked West Virginia, Baylor, and also Cincinnati. Tomorrow, I think we might drop in with the Pittsburgh Panthers as one of our teams as well, among some others. We've already hit Texas and Oklahoma, Iowa, Penn State, is that right? No, Iowa's tomorrow as well, so we'll get into that as well. All right, Paul, let's go to the call.
All right, let's go to Greenville, South Carolina, and William, you are on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Hi, my name's Don. I'm calling from Greer, South Carolina.
Okay,
yes,
hey,
sir.
Don,
Yeah, I got about the Hurricanes. I got one name to replace Manny Diaz is Mario Cristobal.
Yeah, that'd be the dream scenario, wouldn't it? Mario Cristobal right now at Oregon. That would be the dream if you're Miami. I'm curious to see. Go ahead.
Yeah, I grew up in Miami, but I live in Greer, South Carolina now. But I think Mario Cristobal would be a good head coach because he plays for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, and Mark Richt did too, and I think that was what the hope was, but he had to retire, and I think he had him in a spot. But Craig, I'm not sure is Phil Knight going to let Mario Cristobal go if he loves him?
Would I want to leave Oregon, period, for Miami right now? Unless I just really love it. And so there's the tie-in, is if Cristobal, it's his dream to be the head coach of the Hurricanes, then yeah. But, outside of that, what area would you put them over Oregon right now? Mm-hmm. Name one. And don't give me history, because that's what all the Blue Bloods do is like, we got 5 national titles or 3 national titles. Okay, that's fine. It has nothing to do with him wanting to go one place or the other. He's got a really good thing going on right now. And the Pac-12 is, as we see, a very non-competitive conference at the moment where Oregon's pretty much that top tier almost by themselves in a way, because USC's down, UCLA's down now, Washington's down. So,
sorry about that. Hold on, Chris. We'll get you in one second.
Go ahead.
So yeah, if he has an interest, that'd be the home run for Miami. But I don't know. It'd be hard to leave the situation you're currently in. But who knows?
Yeah.
You wonder if it even depends on how Oregon closes out the year or how they are over the next couple of years. This is a great place to be. The facilities are insane. The money, is great. Phil Knight they've. Right now, Miami's kind of like a lot of the other schools that used to be pretty good. They're not right now.
Here's the thing, though. If you are an Oregon fan, the last job you want to probably see come open is Miami.
Yeah.
Because if Cristobal were to actually look elsewhere, I'm not ruling that out at all. I think Miami would obviously make a ton of sense. I think you also have to kind of look at USC a little bit and just wonder, hey, would they – potentially have some interest, but he's going to have some options, including just continuing doing what he's doing right now at Oregon, but definitely a position to watch for sure.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Good luck to your Hurricanes moving forward. Yeah. Paul?
All right, Chris in Missouri, you're on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Hey, guys. Hey, sorry about yesterday. I was a little under the weather, so I wasn't really my peppy self. Hey, one quick thing about Miami. This would be a perfect time for Miami to bring in somebody no one's expecting, like Eric Bieniemy. You know, he's been pining for a job, and that's a good job. He could go in there, bring some young talent in with his charisma. I think that would be a great fit for Miami, is to be forward thinking and pull in from the Chiefs. The thing I was really mainly calling about was Urban Meyer. You know, I'm no Urban Meyer fan. I don't have a dog in the fight. I just feel it's kind of strange that everybody wants his job when, what he did was kind of reprehensible, but it wasn't terrible. Look at what Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, did during the Super Bowl. Didn't he have those girls that were being trafficked giving him, I don't know, I don't want to say it, but he was getting pleasured by them. I think that's a lot worse for the NFL than it would be having a coach just having a pretty girl sitting on my lap. You know, perhaps there's something I didn't see in the videos, but I just wonder what this social outrage is to call for people's jobs because they make a mistake. Well, my mother always told me, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." So that's why I try not to judge people.
Well, Chris,
thanks. I'm glad you're feeling better too. Thank
Chris,
you.
I think you're right. Like, everybody can have all kind of outrage about what happened. Tony Dungy had a great quote that Smoak heard early in the show. It's kind of secondary to it in that he kind of went and lost the credibility of his team because, again, these are professional athletes. These are NFL players. The NFL, like you said, Robert Kraft did what he did. They can't stand on some sort of moral high ground about who's committed what sins and where. It's the way that you respond to them, and Urban Meyer did not respond to them in a way that was maybe forthcoming and credible to the team, and one of the things Urban Meyer's always done is kind of try to blame it on something else or bring something else up or try to divert. He can't do that now, and these guys know what it's like to have randoms or whatever, or girls coming at you. And you get caught, you just have to kind of be like, yeah, that's the life,
Yeah, he's dealing with grown-ups now.
Yeah.
And that's the difference is he can't, just have control over the grown-ups. They're going to have their own opinion. I mean, his players in college have their own opinions too, but the buck stopped with him ultimately. Mm-hmm. He controlled everything about Ohio State or at Florida or wherever. In the NFL, these players don't have to respect you, and oftentimes they probably don't. And I guarantee that pretty much that whole locker room does not respect him at the moment, and that's a problem. And yeah, I'm with you. Like, on the whole fascination that some people have in today's society with calling for other people's jobs, I think you got to look at the source and where that's coming from a lot of the times. But yeah, that is a weird trend that is going on thanks to social media, where one misstep and all of a sudden you got thousands of just random strangers calling for you to be fired and demanding it. But I mean, Urban's got a mess to clean up. I don't know if he'll be able to clean it up. We'll see here over the next couple of weeks. I think that'll be really, really telling. But ugly situation.
It'd be interesting for everyone calling for somebody else to lose their job. If all of a sudden everybody started investigating you would be in a fetal position most likely, because everyone has skeletons. Some have more than others. Doesn't mean you can get away with a lot of things, and sometimes you don't. But it is interesting that that cancel culture, whatever it was called for a while, it's amazing. It's like a tidal wave, and you get on the wrong side of that, you have no chance. You're done. Right.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when you look at, okay, does your personal life affect your ability to do your job? And a lot of times when you see people not get fired for things, it's because whatever they got caught doing, or if people said they're like, well, it really has no bearing on what their actual job they're doing, that's just there was more high profile. But if it does, and in this regard, this has affected Urban Meyer's ability to maybe do his job well because the locker room is not behind him.
Yeah.
They don't trust him, and they don't, He spoke down to them and kind of treated them like idiots instead of just copping to it.
Look, man, if that was a random player that got caught, like it happens all the time, we see like Tristan Thompson's some Kardashian story like every 2 months or whatever that I could care less about. I mean, yeah, athletes are in these situations all the time, and we don't really blink unless it's like the girlfriend's like famous as well, and then we're like, oh my, like that kind of thing for those people interested in that type of thing. So yeah, I don't think people are really batting too much of an eye at his actual behavior, although you do have to question being that out in the wide open in public and just not thinking twice about that. Like, that's bizarre. Like, that to me is the most bizarre thing. Like, you didn't think anything about the fact that like clearly people have camera phones and this girl's grinding on you in front of other people. Like, did he just think that Columbus was his safe space, I guess? Because that's, to me, where the decision-making went really sideways, is like, how did you not think this was going to get out? And what does that say about your decision-making ability? So, I think the players are going to have to going to have to find a way to get over it, or he's going to be on his way out of town, and Jacksonville will have to go back to the drawing board. But, yeah.
All right, on the chat room and then back to a call. Lem30, when someone we brought up, the Pac-12 has had a tough year. And if you can't look at the evidence, Oregon won at Ohio State. Absolutely. UCLA won a game earlier this year. We've always been a little leery about UCLA, fading out eventually. But since that time, Oregon has now fallen. UCLA's fallen at least multiple times. I like what Arizona State's trying to do. USC never really got off the carpet, right? Never got off the ground. But the Pac-12's had a tough year. I mean, it's just obvious. Then you responded, well, what has the Big 12 done? Not much. No, not much. They don't have a great non-conference win that I know of. We're about to see when they start to try to eat each other up a little bit over the next few weeks who can survive, if they can, but not really that much. But the point was about the Pac-12. We don't do buts on this show.
I was going to say, is what about the Big 12? It has nothing to do with the Big 12. Just because you say one conference isn't performing well doesn't mean you don't think that others are all performing greatly. It's just we're talking specifically about the Pac-12, and right now they've got 2 top 25 teams. One of those is one loss away from falling out of it. That's Arizona State. So that leaves you with a top 10 Oregon team who's fresh off their first loss, and that's it. And so, yeah, I mean, Pac-12's struggling. The Big 12 has at least 2 national title contenders at the moment. Now, that's going to take a hit this weekend because one of them has to lose, but I'd say right now Texas and Oklahoma are both firmly in the mix, and we don't know what a run – like obviously like a West Virginia is not going to have a chance at this point because they've lost too much, but you never know. Iowa State could go on a run or perhaps, somebody else gets it together, but yeah, it's not about Pac-12 versus Big 12. It's just, the Pac-12's down this year. Anybody with a brain knows that.
I'll make it simple for you. Look, the Big Ten has a bunch of contenders right now, but they're all about to play each other and eat their young, and we'll find out. The SEC has the two best teams in the country, probably head and shoulders above everybody right now. And not only the wins, but the statistics prove that. It's not the way that just they're winning, but the way they're winning. The Big 12 is kind of a wait-and-see thing. They're very curious at the moment. The Pac-12 has got some problems. And the ACC is the George Clooney Batman movie of conferences right now. It's just bad. Yeah. It's not good. So because you've got all these things going on, I mean, it's just that's how it is. Hey, maybe after this week, the ACC rallies and Wake Forest becomes a dominant team and starts, drilling people and being scary. I don't know, but right now the way it looks, this is the way it looks, and I'm not here to stump for anybody. I'm not chills.
Listen, we cover Baylor. We now cover every freaking conference in America. But my whole point is that the Pac-12 has had some hickeys. The Big 12, I don't even know if they had many good non-conference games. They even have hickeys, and so. But we're not sugarcoating with the Big 12. They need quality wins, and now the only thing left is against themselves, or if Baylor can possibly beat a top 10 team in a couple of weeks with Brigham Young.
Top 5 yesterday, so the Big 12 wasn't getting a team in the playoff. All right, one more call, and then we go to John Machota. Howard in Oregon, thanks for waiting. You're on the Bet US caller line.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Doing great.
Hey, I'll try to talk quick. I got a couple items. You guys just stir me up all the time, which is good. It gets my mind thinking. Hey, I was listening to an interview, with Cristobal and this guy, and he asked him about the USC job, and Cristobal's response was, "Go Ducks." But I mean, that could change with the Miami job, because he's from, that's his school. That could, you guys know that. Anything could change. Okay, I keep switching topics. The thing with Urban Meyer, is just really strange to me. I mean, I can see pro sports viewership is down, incredibly in all sports. I mean, people just get kind of sick of stuff. They see this weird stuff that these athletes are doing, and then they turn around and they're hypocritical about some gal sitting on some guy's lap. I mean, these guys taking knees during the anthem and doing other weird stuff, but they don't want that discussed. Okay, then I'm going to switch to a third topic. I was listening to your interview about what's going on at Baylor venues, and this is really why I called you. At Arizona, they decided to sell alcohol at Arizona Stadium for the football games, and they put in for an application for alcohol at McHale Center, where the Cats the Cats and the men and women play basketball. And I just wanted to know, I don't know that much about Baylor, to tell you the truth. I watch a little bit of their games. I watch Bohannon and this guy Aranda and all that. But I was just wondering, do you guys do that? And if you don't, would there be a big objection to doing that? And that's about all I got.
Alcohol at Baylor?
Yeah, to answer your question, no. I actually asked Mac Rhodes about that a couple months ago, and no, they do not allow alcohol at the games or on campus. Very strict old Baptist rules, are in place still to this day, and they're just different in that way, and they will remain different in that way because while you would think that some athletic departments would find any way to try to drum up a little bit of extra money, I flat out asked Mac about that, like, hey, are you open to that idea at all? And he shot it down totally. No chance. So, yeah, that would certainly help the atmosphere. It would be, I think the most fun part about Baylor, if they were to ever reach a point where they could sell alcohol at games, would just be to watch the crowd have such a hard time struggling on whether or not they should take a sip because the person from church is 2 rows over,
Yeah.
Like, that would be the fight that I would love to see of, like, who rips the masks off and all that. But no, there's no chance of that happening. They got to come up with other options.
It's not going to happen. No,
we're not saying that some boots aren't worn into the stadium.
Oh yeah, for sure. But as far as buying a beer at the game, that's never going to happen.
I absolutely think that would be the last straw for revenue. Although they would make a bunch of revenue, believe me. They would.
they just
and that's got to be the frustrating
part. And there
part.
are suites, and there's a club, the Baylor Club, and there's alcohol sold there.
Yeah, but if they had to sell it in the general stadium, they'd have to put it like around a corner where you have to like knock on the door and be like, the password is donkey, and that
kind of stinks too. I get it because of the private school thing, but that kind of stinks because that's a revenue generator in a major way that everybody else is taking advantage of for the most part. Not everybody, but a lot of teams have already been doing that or been doing it for a couple years now. So, yeah, part of the deal when you're a private Baptist school.
All right, it is 5:25. The Cowboys have released Jalen Smith, and they're playing really, really well. They are playing really well, and in many ways across the board. They're not flawless. They're not perfect. They're not going to run the table. No, they aren't. And we'll come back and hear from John Machota, theathletic.com, on the Cowboys and more. Sikkim 365 Radio. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, come by, let's be friends. And, of course, they have had their continual, every month there's a promotion, whether it's Ram Power Days, Jeep Adventure Days. Obviously, back at the start, a month ago, they had their Labor Day sales event as well. Here's the bottom line. Also, J.D. Power has honored them. The Ram truck is the #1 quality vehicle, and right behind that is Buick. And then, of course, Jeep has what they do as well. And Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, has bonuses and discounts and much more that they're about to announce for the month of October. One thing I can tell you right now is their Ram trucks are amazing, always have been, always will be, back to back to back. Motor Trend Truck of the Year. And then I just told you about what J.D. Power said about the quality as well of Ram trucks. I also know this, that on their lot, there's some pre-owned cars that are fantastic. I bought one from them, and I have loved it. It's the best car, perhaps, that I've ever driven, and it was a relief because I had driven one for 387 miles, and finally it was time for me to get something different. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's time for some high school football. Berg Colgan Ford proudly celebrates the Panthers, Cadets, Lions, and all the Central Texas football teams as they march their way through the season and down the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgan Ford. We'd love to show you our Broncos, Raptors, and Mustangs. These vehicles are winners with their sporty options and designs. Nominate who you think deserves the Built Ford Tough Player of the Week at FordPlayerOfTheWeek.com. Visit us anytime at BKFord.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
So the day's just kind of going about itself yesterday evening, and then the story, Jalen Smith has been released by the Cowboys. And now, of course, it looks like he might land somewhere else. That's not a surprise. Craig's mentioned a couple of the reports about maybe Green Bay. That remains to be seen. John Machota joins us on Wednesdays to talk Cowboys from theathletic.com. John, him being released, if that was going to happen, I would have thought it would have been before the season. It was the timing about cohesiveness in the locker room. Was it because the youngins are doing better? I know that Micah Parsons is a star right now. What about the timing here?
Yeah, it certainly was surprising, and I agree with you. It would have made more sense before the season, but I think that maybe Jerry and some other members of the front office need a little proof from Dan Quinn in the defense that the young guys could step up and could take on bigger roles. And to be honest, they haven't really shown that in previous seasons on defense to get this much immediate impact, not only from first-year free agents that they've signed off the street, but also from their draft class. And so I think that helped push this thing along. And then obviously these last 2 weeks, you've had Keanu O'Neal out with being on the COVID-19 reserve list. And so they needed Jalen Smith. But now with Keanu O'Neal coming back, I think that factored into it as well, that like if they were going to make this move, sooner rather than later, because of what the implications would have been if Jalen Smith got hurt, it would have locked in his contract for next year. And I don't think there's any way he was going to be back after this season, unless there was an injury and it locked his contract in. Let's just be honest here. He's not good in coverage. He has a hard time getting off blocks. I mean, it was running out of places to even have him out on the field. And the other part of it is that, the way that they play defense here, it's like you only really have 2 linebackers on the field at a time, and they're playing more and more of these safeties. You've seen them playing more of J-Ron Curse and guys like that as these almost like this hybrid safety linebacker role. That's why Keanu Neal's been able to fit in, even though he had been a traditional safety. And so I think what they've seen from the defense, what they've seen from their younger players to be able to step up, there was a time here when it was like you would have thought, well, if you don't have Randy Gregory and Leighton and Jalen and DeMarcus, this defense is in trouble. Well, they haven't had DeMarcus Lawrence. They haven't really needed Jalen Smith and that much from Leighton Vander Esch, and they've been having success. And so I think that kind of opened their eyes that, we can get by without him. Let's make this move now.
John, it would seemingly, I saw that you wrote in your column about it that, last year at the end of the year, they asked, would you be surprised if you're not back? And he said, watch the film. Then obviously the Cowboys have certainly watched a lot of film. Were you shocked that he's kind of shocked that this is how it went down?
No, just because, with Jalen Smith, one of the reasons he was able to overcome that knee injury that he had at the end of his Notre Dame career is because that's the way he thinks. Like, he doesn't put limitations on himself. He thinks that, he thought when that happened that he would get back to being the player that he was before the injury, which the player before the injury, he is Micah Parsons. I mean, that's what he would have been. He would have been a top 10, top 5 pick. But that injury was one that it was going to make it hard for him to even play football again, let alone play it at the NFL level, let alone play it at the NFL level at a high level to make a Pro Bowl, which he had done. And so I think all of that is fuel to the fire in your belief that don't listen to anybody else. Don't. Who cares what anybody else is saying? If I make this play, I feel good about it. I'm going to celebrate. Who cares if it's after a 7-yard gain? I'm doing my own thing. I'm not listening to any outside noise. And when you do that, it also comes off as a lack of awareness. And when that happens in the situations, like I said, when you're giving up 2 or 3 big plays and then you make like one solid play and you're celebrating, let's be honest, football fans aren't idiots. I mean, they're going to see that stuff and it's going to rub people the wrong way. And that's certainly what has been happening with Jalen Smith over the last, more than the last year. And it was just it just is fascinating to me because, covering this team when he was drafted in 2016 and then just seeing what he overcame to come back, and the way he played in 2018, you were like, this is like one of the best stories ever. I never would have thought it would have turned as negative as it had over the last year plus. And it certainly had turned negative. And to be honest with you, I'm fascinated to see what team he goes to and how he plays when he gets there. Because like I said, if you can't get off blocks in the run game and you can't defend running backs and tight ends in the passing game, I don't know where you fit on an NFL field at linebacker in today's NFL game.
John, what have you made of sort of the response from the team? I know Micah Parsons talked about, Jalen's meant something to him since he's arrived. And I know Leighton Vander Esch had that quote you put up that he seemed very angry or upset by, it all going down and kind of lashing out at the fans a little bit. Your thoughts on just the locker room's reaction to the Jalen Smith news?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are all surprised. And not just on the defensive side, offensive players, Ezekiel Elliott and others that have been around Jalen Smith for several years, they're all surprised. I'm sure when we talk to Dak tomorrow, he'll say the same thing. And just like we were talking about, I mean, the timing of it is the other thing that really, you're just like, everything's going pretty good. You just won 3 games in a row. We're 3-1. Like, all of a sudden this move's going to happen. This seems like a strange time for this to happen. But I'll say this. I don't see there being some hangover or some issues come Sunday against the Giants because let's be honest, like, whether you're a leader or how long you're on the team for, whatever. At the end of the day, it matters. Are you making plays on Sunday? And so they didn't lose Trayvon Diggs. They didn't just release Oso Digizua. They didn't just cut Micah Parsons. Those are the guys that are making the plays on Sunday. Jalen Smith wasn't making these big game-changing plays to where all of a sudden you're just sitting there and you're just like, how are they going to win these games without Jalen Smith? Nobody that watches the Cowboys is going to say that. And I find it hard to believe that players who study the tape even more than the media or fans are studying are going to sit there and go, oh, I don't know how we're going to beat the Giants without Jalen. That was such a key piece to our defense. I just don't see that happening. Players are going to be surprised that the move happened. And yes, it is a wake-up call that, to any young player that, hey, this is a business. Don't ever get too comfortable because everything can change in a second. Absolutely, there's that wake-up call. But in terms of the psyche of the team, the impact it can have on Sunday, I don't see it being that great.
John, does Jerry loves Jalen Smith. I think a lot of people like the guy. There's no question because of the great story. And you're right, he played well, his second and third year. But what's the sign here? Because Jerry doesn't like to get rid of people like this. This is not a Jerry Jones type move. Is this a great sign within the Cowboys organization?
I think it's a little bit of a sign that it's kind of going back to what I said earlier, that they feel more confident now than they probably have in a long time. That, you know what? We don't have to have an established player at all these positions, particularly on defense. Obviously, they've spent the money on offense. There's key pieces all over littered on that offense, whether it's high draft picks or big dollar guys. But on defense, particularly what they've gotten out of guys like DeMonte Casey and Keanu O'Neal and Jaron Kearse, and then obviously Trayvon Diggs being the 51st pick. Micah Parsons, yeah, he was the 12th overall pick. He's playing like he could have been the 3rd overall pick. Osa Odigizua playing like he could have been a first-round pick. They got him in the 3rd. They think very highly of Chauncey Golston, and clearly what he showed this past week. Jerry Jones was thrilled with that. If basically what I'm saying is if they did not have these signs early in the year that and hey, this is kudos to Dan Quinn, that he showed that he can bring some of these young guys in, some of these first-year players, and they could have immediate success, I don't think this move happens. But because we've seen that, I think that helped make people like Jerry Jones comfortable with this move.
That's actually maybe one of the things that nobody realized about Dan Quinn and his stops in Seattle and Atlanta. That was his true gift, was getting the most out of guys who are not stars.
And you know what's interesting about that, too, is the fact that, like, everybody thought, myself included, that they were going to play a lot of this cover 3 because that's what they did in Seattle. And really, yeah, they did that in Seattle because it fit their personnel, to your point. But also, it was different times then. And how much he's adapted and changed. Like, every week we've seen different game plans. And so it's allowed players, like you mentioned, these players, like, it's not like Richard Sherman was a high draft pick. It wasn't like Cam Chancellor was a high draft pick. Yeah, of course you have your Bobby Wagners and your Earl Thomases, but they had tons of guys over there on that defensive side of the ball that were that high draft picks that played at a high level. So, yeah, absolutely. Hats off to Dan Quinn for that. He certainly has brought it over to this Cowboys defense. Now, hey, they're still a defense that gives up a ton of yards. They're still giving up points. But they've shown you that they can get these young players to contribute right now, and it makes you think, well, the more that those guys play, the better they'll get. Plus, you have other players on the way, DeMarcus Lawrence, Neville Gallimore, that are injured right now, Kelvin Joseph, that could make this group even better. And so while, a lot of people sit there on the outside and they're like, man, why didn't they make a move for Stephon Gilmore? Or why didn't they make a move for Richard Sherman? I think that they genuinely like these young players that are on the roster. Whether us and in the media or fans don't see it, they genuinely believe that.
John, also one of the things about releasing Jalen Smith is, for the first time in a long time, the Cowboys do have this culture of army ant, worker bees. Not everybody is a star. And Jalen Smith was very focused on the Jalen Smith brand, and I think they're at least trying to move away from that 53 individual brands thing that was in the locker room for a couple years.
They could be, but I'll say this: they'll put up with that brand if you're putting up on Sunday.
Yeah.
If Jalen's going out there and he's getting sacked and he's making big time stops, I tweeted last night, a few hours after the move happened, that I think Cowboys fans will most remember him for the play in Houston at the end of that second quarter where, he stopped, the Texans decided to go for it on 4th and 1 there with about 10 seconds to go in the second quarter, and Deshaun Watson kept it, and, Jalen Smith ran almost the entire length of the field to knock him out of bounds for a 2-yard loss, and it was like, whoa, that looks a little bit like that guy that you saw at Notre Dame. Man, if that's what they got now, and then you pair him with Leighton Vander Esch, this could be wild. And when it's like that, you can be the wolf hunter. You can sell sunglasses and have clear-eye view and be whatever you want to be, and Jerry will be the one, champion, whatever you want to do. But when that play starts dropping off, then all of a sudden it becomes a decision of like, well, we might need to move on here.
Yeah, it's interesting I love the youngins, man. That's what I call them, the young kids. They're playing, and Paul, I call them army ants. Mm-hmm. What did you call them? Worker bees.
Worker bees.
They're not high priced. They're not high picks. They're just playing football. I love it. I absolutely. Every team, the Patriots did it for years, right? They don't have. It's as if when Gilmore became available, what was the first thing? Oh, we got to get him.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's because it's a toy, and you don't need him. I'm not saying he's not better than what you have at Anthony Brown, but he's going to cost something. And it's not a fantasy football league team; it's a football team. So, anything else for John?
Yeah, John, how about the Giants coming up?
It was a game.
There is a game coming up this weekend. The Giants coming off their first win after that 0-3 start. Obviously, Dallas looks to be pretty well in control of the division, but to remain in control, you got to win these types of games. Heavy favorites, I would think, here, John, but what are your thoughts on New York?
So when Mike McCarthy was doing his post-game press conference on Sunday, I was checking scores, and I saw that the Giants ended up beating New Orleans overtime, and all I kept thinking about was how Mike probably loved that. Because if they're the 0-4 Giants coming in this game, it's very easy for your team to overlook them. But for them to come back and play the way they did and to win in overtime in New Orleans like that, that's exactly what Mike McCarthy wants, so he can show the team, hey, this is the team that you're going to be facing on Sunday. It's not that team that went 0-3. Saquon Barkley's making plays. They're finding John Ross. Like, Daniel Jones is playing pretty solid. Like, it's the exact type of tape you want to throw out there to get your guys motivated. Because if the Cowboys are motivated, I don't see how they don't win this by double digits. Like, they're clearly better than the Giants, especially playing at home. But there were some things that the Giants did in that game that made you think, hey, maybe this offense is kind of getting it together.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this isn't going to be kind of a walk in the park. And the other thing that's interesting about the Giants is that for all the talk that we have down here about Trayvon Diggs being the 51st overall pick, don't sleep on the 50th overall pick in this past draft, Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, who's their top pass rusher. I thought it was crazy that he fell all the way to 50 in this draft. He's their leading pass rusher. He has 3 sacks this year. He's certainly a guy to keep an eye on. But one last thing I was going to tell you guys, because you had the different names, Rod Marinelli liked to call his guys the Mighty Orphans. So there's another one.
There you go.
Yeah,
which is a great movie. Yeah. No question about it. And guys would play hard for him, no question. Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate your time.
No problem, guys. Anytime.
John Machota, theathletic.com, with us on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. Been back and forth between 5 and 5:30 based on also what he's doing covering the Cowboys in Frisco and elsewhere as well. Hey, I saw this note, and I know we have the top 5 coming up in a minute. This was Eli Letterman. We've had him on the show to talk Oklahoma State back before the year began, early on in the year, and then right before Oklahoma State hosted Baylor and beat them in Stillwater. There was a quote from Mike Gundy. The decision by Baylor's Dave Aranda to go for it on 4th and 2 on Saturday led to Jalen Warren eventually scoring the game-sealing touchdown. Dave Aranda later cited analytics on Baylor's failed 4th down attempt earlier in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, and there were some calls that he made based on analytics that I know that you could still argue and be like, no, that was still probably – but, like, there were justifications for the decisions that he made. And, we all have to, I think, be very careful of the heat of the moment and, judging right as it's happening and not having some sort of, backing to what we're watching. And so to hear him then explain, okay, this is why I did this on 3rd and long or 4th and 2 or whatever. And you're like, okay, well, that makes sense.
At least he's explaining it. Yeah. He could say, screw you. Now, have you ever yelled at the TV, watching a team you like, make a decision? No. Oh, my God, what a great decision. What a great call.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. It's what fans do. We do it, all do it, right?
You know what's changed since I've been in this business longer? I'm like, oh, no. Well, that worked out.
Here's a quote from Gundy. 2 years ago, we subscribed to the analytical service. I'm not against any of them. We used the ones the Eagles started using, and it became very popular, real popular. So we bought it, used it, and had it for every game. And it's way more information than I could absorb. I love the fact that he admitted that because it probably is for most everybody. So I didn't use it. I just go off a gut feeling now. I'm not saying it's not good. I think there's some good information there. I just couldn't figure it out and then get a feel in the game fast enough to make a call. So we don't use that anymore on our play calling or when we go for it or when we don't. But I know that there's quite a few schools that do.
Well, and it sounded like from what Dave Aranda was saying is that they've got that set up pretty quickly to where he knows, there's not a whole lot of figuring out going on based on what he was saying.
Right.
It's kind of like they have whoever looks at that and is quick to go and grab, like, oh, here are the odds on if we go for it here versus if we don't. And it gets down pretty quickly. Although they did have their communication issues, that wasn't really with the decisions like that necessarily. But, yeah, I mean, to each their own, right? I mean, Gundy has been successful doing it his way. Aranda's looking to be successful and has found some more success this year doing it his way. And no surprise that he and Aranda aren't exactly alike and that Aranda's more of an analytics guy and Gundy's not. I think that's pretty much what you would expect, I think.
Haircut alone tells you that he's not really an analytics guy. But I think this about the analytics. If you're going to do it, you have to do what baseball teams do and have a guy like Bill James who can explain it to you real fast.
Yeah.
4th and 2, this says go for it. It's up to you now, Coach.
Yeah.
And not the why, but just go. Who can go real fast? You have to be able to get that information fast. If you want to have analytics, you have to have a mathematician brain who can kind of explain it to you really quickly, or find it and figure it really quickly. If you don't have that, it's not worth having them. Because again, Mike Gundy is not going to go through. He shouldn't have to go through and learn all this stuff. He just needs somebody to tell him, like, this is what the numbers say.
Yeah, and then you just go, and yeah, even if the numbers don't favor you, you still might go for it.
I would just call the guy Math. I'd be like, hey, Math.
Yeah, basically.
Math, what does
Somebody's
Math say?
on staff, an analyst or somebody that has that right at their fingertips. Basketball's the same way. You know, you used to have that chart. When do you go for two? Do you start chasing points too early? Like the Cowboys, you know, they didn't go for two, and then they did. And if you miss a 2-point conversion, you can make it up with another one. But you can also then lose even up to like 4 or 5, a field goal or a touchdown before it's all said and done if you start chasing points too early by trying to make up by going for 2.
And I do think there is sort of a fascinating little battle brewing with the numbers folks versus the gut feel folks. You know, you see a lot of those conversations about analytics and those who buy into them and those who don't as much, or those who, you know, use them, but they don't necessarily think they're the end-all be-all. And they're those who are like, every decision is driven purely by what numbers say, you know? So it's different for different strokes, different folks. But I think Gundy's proven that his gut instinct works pretty well, analytics or not.
All right, when we come back, it is a segment that gets quite a bit of attention. Paul Catalina's top 5 Baylor women's basketball players for the 21-22 season.
Not today.
Is that going to happen, though?
Probably not.
Well, your most popular top 5 was about the women's basketball coaching search. Yes. All right, when we come back, Paul, what's it about?
Top 5 assistants ready to be head coaches.
All right, in college football?
Yep.
All right, that's next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. A hidden gem, great selection of spirits, craft beer. Oh, the craft beer in the walk-in fridge. If you're a craft beer fan, you need to go down and check it out at Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street. If you're a fan of high-end bourbons, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Buffalo Trace, Weller, Pinhook, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, Bardstown. Great customer service and a speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me.
Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months and have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. Thank you, Genco. And don't forget, your vote counts. Vote today for your local school to win $1,500 with Genco's School Spirit Competition. For more information, go to gencofcu.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Grant Dideker, under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. When you contact people about insurance, and people are hit up with it all the time, what do you tell them? What do you say? I know you say you educate, but Texas Farm Bureau Insurance is obviously successful for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
And has hundreds of thousands.
It's personal service. Okay. It's one-on-one service. Just yesterday, went to a client's house, met with the couple, went over all the coverages, and they said, wow, we've, never had this before. We've had this different insurance and that different insurance, but we've never had somebody actually come to the house and go over everything with us. And wow, we really appreciate that, especially this day and time where it's just a click of a button and you really don't know who you're dealing with. It's a different person you call every time you call that 800 number. You don't know who your agent is. Now they have a face with the name, and it's more personal service.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Brought to you by my good friends at Champion Salon and Barber. I'm due. Let's see if this beard's just getting bushy. It's getting bushy. I gotta go get it taken care of. 2 locations, Waco, Woodway, in downtown. Just check out the website, championsalonandbarber.com, and book your appointment. I get the Champion with beard trim. That's what I get.
Apparently not lately.
Oh, not in 3 weeks. So, gotta see Lorraine. That's what I gotta see.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Okay.
She takes care of me. Top 5 assistants ready to be head coaches. Number 5.
Just name 5 Alabama assistant coaches.
I'm not going to do it. I did for Beer Smoker.
Okay.
We didn't do it. And I wasn't. The thing is, I could do the top 5 Alabama assistants, and that would be that are going to be head coaches in 2 years. But number 5, Brent Venables at Clemson. I think it's time for Brent Venables. The offense has fallen off. The defense has stayed the same. After he got run out of Oklahoma, he's reinvented himself. I want to see Brent Venables as head coach somewhere.
Craig, has Oklahoma's defense, and I know that they've gone through some stretches, hasn't it been any good since he left?
It's pretty good right now.
Yeah, Grinch has turned that screw a little bit to tighten them up.
No, I think that Oklahoma fell into a pattern of it was a national championship or bust, which is pretty much what that program is. I mean, they're one of, there's blue bloods, and I think that there's also another a level you could separate. Oklahoma's in that top level with your Ohio States and your Notre Dames and teams like that, but. No, I mean, Alex Grinch, I think, has done a pretty good job overall, but there was a stretch there where, they were struggling, and even Venables was struggling a little bit, and, struggles for Venables were nothing in comparison to actual struggles for other football teams, but the standard is so high that it's not good enough, and maybe they needed to make a change. I don't know, but he's a damn good defensive coordinator. I know that some of it's been his own doing as far as wanting to stay at Clemson versus really pursuing other jobs. He's always been linked to that K-State job, but obviously they went with Kleiman, and I think that was a terrific hire. I think K-State's going to be really good for the long haul with Kleiman, but yeah, it's been curious to see him just remain out there, and you'd have to think that at some point in time he's going to want to make that jump, but at the same time, I don't know what he said most recently about head coaching desires and whatnot. I've always been under the assumption that he wants to be a head coach, but he's got a pretty good gig. And I can understand that maybe being a head coach and having to deal with everything from the top on down is not something that everybody wants to do,
And Clemson's problem's not their defense.
No, that's why I said he's ready. I kept Tony Elliott off this list intentionally because maybe he's got more problems than I realized. Number 4, Kendall Briles at Arkansas. I don't think Kendall is maybe ready necessarily to be the head coach at another SEC school or a Big 12 school, but a North Texas is right up his alley.
And unfortunately, Seth Luttrell, they're struggling.
Yeah, but I'm just talking a school that size. Texas State, That's a good spot for Kendall Briles. That's a good spot for him to prove it. I know that his last name is going to keep him out of it, and his association, the fact that he was here during that. I just think he's ready. I think he's shown adaptability.
I don't think it's going to be a Texas State or someone. I think it'll be bigger than that. I just do. I just think that because of where he's been and what he's doing, it might be a little bit larger than that.
Yeah, I mean, Kendall is bound to be a head coach at some point. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. I don't know, though. I mean, the timing would lead you to believe that, he could probably go jumpstart at Texas State or someone like that right now, but also not a bad idea. I mean, we've seen plenty of coaches who wait their time, and like Pittman at Georgia. Remember we were just talking about that the other day, and then how he could have gone so many different places, but Saban's like, no, just stay here, wait for the right opportunity, and then jump on it. And look, here you're at Georgia, rather than having taken like the Louisiana Tech job just to say you're a head coach, So I think Kendall can be a little bit selective. But I do anticipate him becoming a head coach at some point one day.
And it's funny you mentioned Pittman at Georgia, who went to Arkansas, where Kendall Briles is, because the next one is Dan Lanning, the defensive coordinator at Georgia. Young guy. We talked about it the other day with Chip Towers. I say these guys are ready to be head coaches. Doesn't mean they're going to be it in the next year, but they're ready. If you're going to hire somebody, I think Dan Lanning would be one heck of a hire.
We were at the Sugar Bowl, covered that game. Georgia hammered Baylor. They were better. And those two assistant coaches, both of them that we saw that were there other than their head coach in Kirby Smart, were both impressive.
Yeah, they were. And that defense is so ridiculous, man. It really is. Like, it's so ridiculous how good that defense is. So, I'm sure his name is going to be mentioned quite a bit in this upcoming cycle.
Number 2, Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame. This is a guy, I know that Notre Dame's defense isn't probably as good as his defense at Cincinnati was a year ago, numbers-wise. He's a guy whose personality I really like, his enthusiasm, the way
he is,
that he's adaptability. He's go for broke.
Blitz and the band's going to play.
I think he will. I think he'll do really well as a head coach. I think people are going to want to come and play for him. So and I think he's probably another year or so at Notre Dame away from this opportunity, but I think he's ready. I do.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him, honestly. And then, of course, with how our show has grown and changed a lot, and then, of course, Notre Dame off to a couple of nice starts. But he is a little crazy when it comes to and it's hurt him a little bit, but I hear a lot of great things about him.
Well, I mean, he's been raised up right. Luke Fickle is he was part of the Cincinnati staff with Fickle. Got to see each other play against each other last weekend, which worked out in Fickle's favor. But Marcus Freeman's one of the good assistants out there, and absolutely a guy that should be in line for some jobs.
And number 1, Mike Elko at Texas A&M. This is a guy who's keeping this team afloat right now. A&M is in games because Mike Elko's defense is nearly as good as it was back in the Wrecking Crew days at A&M.
We had that graphic yesterday about the stop rate, right, with Georgia at the top 93% stop rate. But A&M was still among the top 5 or 6, despite they did get Mike Leach kind of riddled them a little bit.
Yeah.
But their problem is not the defense.
A&M's problem is their offensive go rate. Their offense doesn't go anywhere. It's stopped by the other guys.
Speaking of which, interviewed John King, Longview football coach, about his son Haynes, and he's talking about how he's never missed anything in his life, but that he feels like, he told me this, I'm sure it's been reported by those who cover A&M, that he still might be able to play significant time before the end of the season. Now it's going to be too late because they're about to lose to Alabama and start the conference at 0-3.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting list, Paul, and there's obviously only room for 5. There's others out there that will be of interest, but I mean, I'm fascinated to see where Kendall's journey eventually takes him, and Venables, and whether or not he just finally decides, I am going to lead my own program. But I mean, all 5 of those guys, I'm sure we'll be talking about as head coaches within the next 3-4 years.
Yeah, and Venables still. All these guys are still relatively young guys. I'm not doing the David Culley to the Texans
Dan
thing.
Lanning's only, 35, I think? So he's still quite young.
Yeah. So,
and Kendall's in that vicinity, too. He might be a little bit older, I think.
When will Jeff Grimes be on that list?
He might be ready as well. I mean,
can we see the offense operate well?
Yeah, let's see it again at another
get
place.
The offense going again. Let's see that this weekend against West Virginia and their nasty defense. I mean, forget head coaching jobs and all of that. That offense needs to bounce back in a major way, and the challenge is not – I mean, you think about Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. I'm sure that like Bama or Georgia or somebody will point to their stretch and the defenses they play. That's a pretty salty stretch of defenses to have to play this year. Is Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia back to back to back. That's pretty salty. So big challenge in front of Jeff Grimes this weekend.
Yeah, and it's amazing where he was after the win against Iowa State first half, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, what's going on here? They're going to be fine, and it's not going to be easy. Doesn't mean that they'll just go throw up 35 points against anybody. All right, for Armstrong Sims, Hayden Bumpus, that's twice this week in 1 week. Hayden Bumpus, Jack McKenzie, and his drone, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Thanks to you, chat room, text line, also phone calls as well. And I'm David Smoak. Thank you. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.